I don't know who's doing it. I got an idea though. I think it's Junior Roseman who's trying to shut us down. But you can't. We are 7 days away from the Eagles showing up to training camp. But as always, truth, justice, and the Big Sills way here on the National Football Show. We started off with Big Sills. And how you doing? By the way, I have to give myself a lot of kudos yesterday, even though the show went through some technical difficulties. I actually like that for a name of a show. Technical difficulties. I actually may rename the show Big Sills, the Technical Difficulty Show. I don't know. There's got a ring to it. I like it. Okay? Or Mr. Antagonizer. Something like that. That has like a nice ring to it. The king, no longer the king of content, but the king of antagonizing. And kind of getting under your skin a bit. As I pontificate here. By the way, we did have some stupid internet issues. We apologize. And hopefully, by the way, we got a brand new modem all set up here. So still got some technicians coming out to double check here because we do not want to shut the bad puppy down. And we appreciate you hanging tough with us yesterday. Thank you. Dave Wannstedt, the 3-time Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator with the Dallas Cowboys back in the Jimmy Johnson days, former head coach of the Miami Dolphins and Chicago Bears, and also worked with Vic Fangio, will be with us at 4:30. Xander, as always, will be with us at 3:30. We're going to start ramping up the guests again. You know, everyone's kind of on a hiatus when it gets to this time of the year, right before training camp. Now everybody's kind of on vacation. Now everybody's getting ready to get back to work. So Boomer Esiason, Phil Simms, all the guys that you come to love, Tony Dungy, all those guys will be back, rearing to go and ready to jump on the program. Brian Baldinger as well, as we get ready for training camp. All these guys will start ramping up and getting back on the program. So we look forward to having you guys here with us. We thank you again. So 4:30, the 3-time Super Bowl defensive coordinator, Dave Wannstedt. If there's a guy that knows Vic Fangio, it's Coach. So we will get him on again for you. And we'll ask him some questions about what to expect this coming season with Vic's defense. You know, is this going to come down to what are we going to look at schematically on how they're going to get pressure? And we'll get his thoughts. So, yo, Big Sills, what do you think about Skip Bayless getting fired? That boy lived off of 3 topics. Bruce, absolutely. And I'm hearing, I just told Xander, I think Nick Wright's getting the job to replace him. You know, hey, he had a good run, whether you liked him or not. I never looked at shit like that. Bayless lasted a long time. Good for him. Made a ton of money. Was one of the guys on television that took what I did from the radio airwaves and put it on TV. Personally, in my opinion, the greatest talk show, sports-wise, that was on television, that is still on television, is PTI. I think Kornheiser is the best. I think Bayless is good. Tony Kornheiser is absolutely the greatest. He could do radio, television, and I like PTI. PTI was my favorite and still is. When you want a really good show with humor, getting to the topics, guys having original opinions, PTI, which they don't promote as much, they promote First Take a lot more, but PTI is a great show with Wilbon and with Kornheiser. That thing, the reason that thing still does well today is because those guys are very talented guys. If I'm not mistaken, I think Wilbon was a DC writer, and so was Tony Kornheiser. They were both in DC, I think, at the Washington. I'm trying to think, were they at the Washington Times or were they at the Wall Street Journal? I can't remember what they were. I think the Washington Post that those two guys were at. So, yeah, just, you know, hey, whatever you think of Bayless, I don't really get into whether, because I don't know Skip. So I don't really have an opinion on what he's like, whether he's a dick or not. I don't care. I just know this. He lasted a long time. He did a job. He drove that show into the toilet off of 3 topics: ripping LeBron, ripping Aaron Rodgers, and kissing the Cowboys' ass. People got tired of it. And when he blew up and threw off Shannon Sharp, he thought he didn't need him. He thought the show was about him, like Stephen A. Smith with First Take. Well, actually, Stephen A. Smith is better on TV than he is on radio. He's horrible on radio, but he's good on TV. So he's made a niche for himself on TV with that First Take show. And it's actually doing very well since they brought Shannon Sharp over. Shannon wins the argument now. Skip's been canceled. He thought it was all him. Well, when Shannon left, it only took that show, not even a year before it ended up getting canceled. So just remember, things you're doing with the people that you're doing, it ain't about you. I can't do this show without Xander. I can't do this show without Joe. I used to think that back in the day. You have to have a team to put a show on. You have to have the tree and you have to have the people, and the people behind the scenes are more important sometimes than the actual guy in front of the mic or in front of the camera. And if you don't know that, you're not going to go far. It's not about you. It's about how it's presented to people, where it lands. Sports talk is not as easy as you think. I'm watching Xander on Birds 365 as he's going through the process of learning how to be a sports talk host. I'm still learning. There's nothing wrong with that. Jalen Hurts is still learning to be a quarterback in this league. And Xander's doing a great job of it, man. Formulating topics, taking topics and cutting them in half, rewriting topics. That's how you do it, man. You create your own content. You don't stick on the same content. Now, again, what makes the Eagle content so good is because there is a polarizing figure on your football team. There's actually 2. Let's do this for a second. Not to bore you with how you orchestrate or you building block a show. The 2 polarizing people on the Eagles, there's actually 3 of them: Howie, Nick, and Jalen. The rest of them are sub-content. You build your show around those 3 men because those are the 3 men that are the focal points for this 2024 year. Jalen Carter being good, Jordan Davis, those are subtopics. Okay? AJ Brown kind of could sneak up in there, especially when he opens his mouth. Okay? But there's 3 guys that are going to move the needle this year when it comes to the Eagles: the GM, the head coach, and the quarterback. There's no way around it. Sitting around talking about the 3rd wide receiver as an opening segment in my show will never happen. That's not going to happen. It's called getting to the red meat right away. Did you see the interview with the Raiders head coach? I want a coach like that. I like that coach. Former player himself. Okay? Xander's great at his job. He doesn't push an agenda. He does his research, unlike other people. Hey, Prince, once again, Prince, you're not and haven't been drafted to come here every day. You know, it's funny. What I love about Prince, and I do love Prince, you know what he says? He comes here to take shots at us every day, but he's here every day. So it's a win for Big Sills. You know, you could just do Birds 365, or you can watch the other guy that comes on before Xander. You don't have to be here. You're not obligated. You come here because you want to be here. And I want you here. I like Prince. I do. Okay? And by the way, Prince, I've been doing it for 35 years. I kind of know what we're doing. And I'm not throwing shots at you. Sills, I'm here for JAKIB and Eagle content. Okay. You know what, Prince? I'll accept that. Thank you very much for being here for JAKIB and for Eagle content. And I thank you. Okay? No problem. And I'll accept that, and I agree with you. And if that's why you're here every single day for 4 hours, then fine. I love it. And thank you, and we all thank you. And I mean that. I'm not being facetious. Okay? I'm here for the guest. Okay. You're here for the guest. Sure. Okay. We go if you want. Dude, you can come, and I don't have nobody's obligated to do anything. Ayuk wanted to be traded and is demanded a trade by the San Francisco 49ers, and he's requested it to them. I don't know what they'll end up doing. Okay. I really don't. But I could see the Los Angeles Chargers making a play. I could also see the Washington Commanders making a play. Absolutely. We are 7 days away, as I said, from Eagle training camp. And rookies are reporting, as we said yesterday, to these facilities. Ravens are already in camp. Bears, Bills, Chiefs, Chargers, Giants, 49ers, Saints. I mean, you have free agents, newly acquired players, and rookies starting to report all week long at these facilities. Hey, Joho, how you been, brother? Thanks for coming back. I really appreciate it. Okay? Dan is great with guests, but not so much as when he's alone. Really. That's why I could do a show on my head for 4 hours without taking a break if I didn't have to. And I still pull great numbers. We appreciate you all on all of our platforms too. Whatever, dude. You know, I used to always hear that. Hey, Sills, man, you're doing 14 shares by yourself in the mornings at DAE. By yourself? Yeah. Because I'm not having someone drive me like Nick Sirianni. I would never allow anybody to have my career in the hands of somebody like Nick. Can you imagine what Nick's doing? That's anti-Sills. Hey, Kellen, hope you have a good year, because if you do, you save my job. What kind of guy is that? Dude, if I'm going to blow my show up, I'm blowing it up. I'm not having someone else do it for me. What kind of guy would allow somebody else to put his career in their hands? No, thank you. I want to be the master of my own demise or my own successes. Okay? Daniel, Sills, I got to say, is Big Sills, happy Football Tuesday, brother. 7 days to camp? Yes, sir. Yes, sir, baby. 7 days to camp. All right. I want to get into the topics. First and foremost, I saw a poll over on WIP. And we're gonna crescendo up to the topic here. You think the criticism of Jalen Hurts is fair? You think it's fair coming off of 23 heading into the 24 season? There is a lot of people right now that have backed up a ton on how they look at Jalen Hurts. A ton on how they look at him. And I got an opinion on this, and I'm going to make finally my statement why how I look at him and how I look at quarterbacks like him, and why I'm sitting where I'm at now compared to where I was in 22 with him. Mike says no. Joseph says yes. DFW, yes. Anytime you sign a $55 million contract, DFW, I believe that too. Hey, DFW, Jalen Hurts deserves the same kind of heat Dak Prescott gets. Okay? He deserves the same kind of heat that Dak gets. I would tend to think Dak more because Dak's been in the league more. And Dak has been a starter more. JM says Hurts doesn't get enough heat. We don't get 11 wins last season with Carson Wentz. Yes, you do. Carson Wentz never had that talent. Yes, you do. Wentz wins 11 games with that talent. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Hurts was rolling in 22. In the entire offseason, the Philly media was speculating whether he could be more conventional of a quarterback to keep getting injured on the run. 23 said no, he can't do it, says Slager. It's a great take, Slager. It's a great take. The fumble in the Super Bowl proved everything I need to know in the Super Bowl. Hey, Chips and Birds, that's funny you should say that because I'm going to go on to a take here about how I think people are looking at him and why people look at him the way he does and the style of play he has. Hurts is being pampered. I don't know pampered. I think protected a little by the fan base because hey, by the way, I don't think there's anything wrong with the Eagle fans wanting him to have success. There's nothing wrong with rooting for him. You see, you're more in the rooting for him mode now to have a good bounce back season. And again, not that he was awful last year, but that's not a $55 million quarterback. And that's what you all are looking at. Hey, listen, he didn't play bad last year, but that's not what I paid for. And you're right. Two things can be right here. You want it to be better. There's nothing wrong with that. And you're rooting for it. And you're rooting for it. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay? There's nothing. Yeah, but Braun says, hey, the fans are. No. It's okay, though, to want to root for one of your guys. There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Okay? But you got to be realistic in what you're looking at. Okay? You just see, I'm not debating the fact Carson Wentz never in a billion years and no quarterback in Philadelphia Eagle history has ever had the talent Hurts has had. Nobody. It's the richest offensive huddle in NFL history. Nobody has ever had more money spent and more money due, actually, as we pointed out, with the cap hits that are coming, than the Eagles. This is the richest offense in NFL history. Okay? Here's a great take by Prince. Jalen must prove the naysayers wrong. Okay? He must prove the naysayers wrong by controlling what he can, such as turnovers. But there are definitely mixed opinions about him. Correct. And I'm going to give you an opinion, and you tell me if you subscribe to this. How do you all let that guy make a racial remark in the chat if I said I don't like black folks? Y'all would block me. Who said that? Sill's got the best football content. Thank you, Spin. I appreciate that. If you pay Jalen on how he played in 22, then let him play that stuff. That's DFW. That's totally my take. Hurts is not a generational talent. Philly, this is where I'll side on Jalen's side. Do you think that Jared Goff is a generational talent? Do you? Do you think that Jared Goff, he just got a $53 million contract? Do you think he's a generational talent? I don't. I don't think he's a generational talent. But he just signed for $53 million. Right? Like, do you think Kyler Murray's a generational talent? He just signed for $46 million. So when you say that, I don't think Jalen is a generational talent. When you pay somebody that money, well, don't get it confused. Just because you got paid that money doesn't mean you're great. Or doesn't mean you're a generational talent or a franchise quarterback. These salaries have skewed that opinion. Just because you get paid the most money doesn't make you the best quarterback in the league. Nobody would ever say Joe Burrow or Trevor Lawrence are the two best quarterbacks in pro football when you got a guy in Kansas City, what he's doing. Correct? The money is confusing people. The money has nothing to do with your skill set. It has zero to do with it. actually. Just because you make more money than that one respected player. Like, get this. Wouldn't you take C.J. Stroud over Kyler Murray? And he's on a rookie contract. Does that mean that Kyler Murray is a better ball player than C.J. Stroud or Jordan Love because he makes more money? That doesn't mean that. Because Jalen Hurts makes a ton of money, that doesn't make him better than Dak or anyone else. It just doesn't. You're being confused by the salaries and how you look at people. Okay? Appreciate everybody. Please hit the like button, by the way. We always try to get to 200 likes each and every single day. So please hit that like button. We thank you. I'm going to make a comment to you. And I want you to get and have an understanding. I went back and looked at the last 20 years. And I'm going to show you why people look at Hurts the way they do. In the last 20 years, here's been the criteria for Super Bowl winning quarterbacks. 30 touchdowns, about 147 yards rushing, 1 rushing TD. That's the criteria on how quarterbacks who win Super Bowls look. And that's been consistent for the last 20 years. The guys who are 3,500, 800 rushing, 20 touchdowns passing, 15 rushing, those are great. He's a wonderful talent, but that's not Super Bowl criteria. And you're not going to get a consistent season, and you're not going to be in a consistent place to be a Super Bowl contender when you don't have the criteria that the quarterback looks like when he wins these games. At the end of the day, Jalen Hurts doesn't look like a Super Bowl contending quarterback. He doesn't. And that's the problem that people have with it. Nobody wins Super Bowls like Lamar and Jalen. Nobody. They all look to be the guys that had limited rushing yards, limited touchdowns rushing, 35 touchdowns passing, 30 TDs. That's what a Super Bowl contender looks like every year. They don't look like Hurts. Now, I'm not saying that Jalen's not a good player. That's not what this is. I'm just saying that ain't winning these Super Bowls because that's not what a Super Bowl winning quarterback looks like. And until somebody changes that dynamic, okay? McNair never won a Super Bowl. That's not true. McNair didn't win a Super Bowl. Almost. Doesn't count. Only in horseshoes. Colin Kaepernick almost. Russell Wilson is not Jalen Hurts. He's a better passer. When you look at the standard quarterbacks, and until somebody wins it, okay? But by the way, Russell Wilson leaned on Marshawn Lynch. When they took Marshawn Lynch off that football team, Russell Wilson was lost. That was Lynch's team. When they took Marshawn Lynch off the football team, Russell Wilson never again even looked remotely close to it. Now, again, that's not what in the last 15 years the quarterback position looks like. And remember, I said in the last 15 years, 20 years you want, 30 TDs, about 150 yards rushing, 1 TD rushing. That's the criteria. That fits Josh Allen too. We'll talk more about him here in a second. Do you understand what I'm saying? You can't be consistent playing Jalen Hurts' style. And the Eagles know that. That's why they're coaching him different. You get that? I've now figured out why. Because they know that 22 style is not going to win a Super Bowl. The only way they're going to win a Super Bowl with him is a better, improved 23. And that's why they've changed him. or they're trying to coach him differently. Because you know why? Their actions are speaking to what they're doing and how they're trying to develop into a pocket passer. And Prince is right. The Eagle organization is skipping steps. We should have a coaching system that develops the players. He is dead nails right. They're skipping steps. They're inflating the expectations. And you know how they're inflating the expectations? By signing the players around him, because that roster is too good to waste on a project quarterback. When Jalen Hurts was drafted, he was a project. By the way, is that project moving in the right direction? I'll tell you this. Even with 23's walk back, he's still advancing. Look, the last 2 years, if you told me Jalen Hurts, 22 and 23, coming out of college at Oklahoma, he would look the way he does, and he would put up the numbers he's putting up, I would tell you you're crazy. He's absolutely overachieving. But is that good enough? And is that style? This is clearly why they have decided to change and coach him as a drop back pocket passer. Because they know the criteria to win a Super Bowl isn't the 22 criteria. It's the only explanation while you're doing this, why you're taking the RPOs away, why you went out and signed a free agent running back like Barkley, is because you're trying to get away from 22 because you know that style. He's not going to consistently keep you in the picture to win a Super Bowl. The last 15 years show you that. That guy looks like 30 touchdowns, 150 yards rushing, 1 touchdown rushing. That's how those quarterbacks look. The Eagles are trying to coach that criteria. It makes sense. It totally makes sense. Now, will he develop into that? You got to give him time. You know what they do every time, though, the Eagles? They slow his growth when you change coordinators, change terminology, change systems. It's got to be one of the most frustrating things for a kid who wants to develop into being a pocket passer to have to go back to the drawing board every year. Whether it's terminology, certain new plays being added, why can't he ever have the same offense? You had the 8th ranked offense last year. You think Kellen Moore's going to have Kellen Moore, in your opinion, is going to have a better offense than ranked 8th. Okay. He's going to score more than 26 points and be ranked 8th. That's a pretty good season. That's a pretty good year. That's a lot of pressure being added. Number 2, at least. They've never been that high, even with Steichen. Sills, this team has Hurts on the first step forward and 2 steps backward program. RPO forward, drop back and read. Hey, I'm going to get here to it. Greg Cosell, and I can't play the sound clip, says Hurts can't read defenses. He can't read defenses. This is Greg Cosell from the NFL Films, who breaks this shit down all the time, says that he can't read defenses. He struggles with it. I know some of you don't want to hear that, but he can't. That's not from me. Dude's still learning. Ask a quarterback. His 4th season as a starter. I know. Bro, hey, Bernard, I think he's actually moving forward. If Hurts happens to take the team to the Super Bowl this year, that would be remarkably cool. Exactly, Sills. If fans were willing to deal with a fight tooth and nail and be patient for that dickhead Carson Wentz, they could do the same for Jalen. Absolutely. Find out if he can become. Right now, Greg Cosell says he can't read defenses. So a quarterback can't develop. Who said that? He said right now he can't read defenses. Nobody said he can't. I'm saying you think this guy's a top 5 quarterback now? He ain't. He ain't. He is a top 5 talent. He's a top 10 talent. Is he a top 10 quarterback? Fuck no. Sills, what's the difference? Rodgers and Brady. I go back to that all the time. Rodgers is by far a better talent. Brady's the better quarterback. Dude, Brady and Peyton Manning can't jump over a stack of quarters. Have you ever seen Tom Brady squatting? Have you ever seen Tom Brady in the weight room? The only videos you've ever seen of Brady are on a football field or what? In front of Belichick playing war games. He's not in the weight room. You know why? Dude, being in the weight room, you don't get pats on the back for that. This is pro football. You want me to thank you for doing your gig? Like I told you before, and I use the analogy. It's like thank you somebody for not robbing a bank. You're in the NFL. You're going to lift weights. You're going to be in shape. I'm not going to give you kudos for doing your job on getting yourself in shape and getting your body ready for the 24th season. You don't get back slaps for that. You get back slaps for getting better reading defenses and preparing the players around you. That's when you get back slaps. That's when you get those back slaps. Jalen's a hard worker. So what? So is every other successful quarterback. Tell me something different that separates him. Jalen works harder than who? Burrow? I don't believe that. I believe they work the same. I believe they work the same. Works harder than Josh Allen? I don't believe that. I think they all work the same. Okay? Hurts doesn't work where it matters. He was crying about learning an offense like a kid does. And he's told to mow the lawn, and he's upset with it. That's what JM's referring to. Okay? Jalen Hurts did more 4 seasons overrated quarterback than Justin Herbert. Nobody on the planet would ever say Jalen Hurts is a better passer and a better quarterback prospect than Justin Herbert. Nobody. No, nobody. Again, there goes the criteria. If you put Justin Herbert on the open market or Jalen Hurts, you'd have 30 teams wanting to go after Justin Herbert. Jalen Hurts doesn't fit us every style of play for every team. Herbert, you can win from the pocket. I mean, once again, you don't get paid on wins. You get paid on how you conduct yourself in the pocket. And he's been, in my opinion, I think only Mahomes has more yards than him in his first 3 years than any quarterback in the league. History. Again, I want to go back to one thing I said here. I'm not saying that Jalen's not talented. But the criteria of a Super Bowl quarterback, he doesn't fit it. Are you going to have a year where you look sensational? Here, let's do this. 2-time MVP and Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar Jackson is built for the regular season, and his fundamental flaws come out in the postseason. You know why? He's not built to win. He's not built to win those games. Because you have to win from the pocket in the postseason to win a Super Bowl. Last 15 years, 30 TDs, 150 yards rushing. Those are the guys that win. The dual threat guys are going to be like the Kaepernicks, the Hurtses, Lamar. Very talented people. They're going to get you to the game. They can get you to the game. One of those guys is going to have to push through. Okay? One of those guys is going to have to. Love my birds, but Jalen got to show he's elite. This season, he's got to show he's worth the money, or it be a la Wentz. Still think we paid him too soon. I do too. Off of one season. That's not enough. And that's why he gets the criticism that he gets, because he's only had one season. And the only thing you now do is refer back to that 22 season because you saw something. But the problem, again, goes back to what Greg Cosell said and what a lot of folks are saying. They're not playing him that way any longer. They're trying to change him into being the criteria of today's Super Bowl type quarterbacks. Win from the pocket. Hey, when they asked him to do that, he couldn't see the blitzes. He got hit more, and he got hit more in the pocket as a drop back quarterback. He held the ball too long. Here's the fundamental things that he get. And by the way, are these young player issues? Holding on to the ball too long. Isn't that Carson Wentz too? He did. Not seeing the blitz. Isn't that Carson Wentz? How come everything Jalen Hurts is struggling with, Wentz struggled with at the end? After Los Angeles, and Wentz got hurt, and after really Seattle as well, they stopped running him, right? I thought he was kind of like a pseudo Brett Favre at one time when I first saw him playing earlier in his career. And when the Eagles decided that they didn't want him out in the perimeter like that and wanted him to be more of a pocket, he is struggling from the same characteristics that Jalen Hurts is now struggling with. Blitzes and holding the ball too long. Am I wrong? Am I wrong? Sills, Hurts' work ethic should be embraced by putting a scheme together that fits his athletic ability. A la Shane Steichen. This team can succeed until Hurts' quarterback skills improve. You know what's crazy, Bob? The 22 season, I thought Hurts was getting better as a passer by the end of the year. I did. I thought he was getting better until he got hurt in that Chicago game. I thought he was actually getting better. And then they decided this past season to do business decisions. Get down, slide. Less situational RPOs. Less read options. More in the pocket. He struggles from the same thing Wentz struggled from at the end of his career in Philly. Is it hard knowing Hurts will prove you wrong? That's not part of my conversation right now. Agreed. His confidence was better. Bob, you know why? Because he had a comfort zone in what he was doing when he was running. Remember how many times, Bob, that I say, look, you know what's crazy? The conversation that I'm having here on July 16th, 2024, compared to the conversation we were having in season during the 22 year is night and day. You know why? Because the player has completely changed. Isn't it funny? It's not flip-flopping. Jalen Hurts is not the player he was in 22 right now. Can he get back to that? We're waiting and seeing if that's going to be a possibility. But now there's still doubt. And that's what everyone around, including executives and coaches and general managers and scouts. Let me read you something. An evaluation of Jalen Hurts. Let me read you this. Let me go down to this. And somebody sent me this. An evaluation of Jalen Hurts. Here's Jalen Hurts' valuation. All-pro votes. Jalen is elite, no question. Yeah, Gardner Minshew and him had a great Pro Bowl last year. After a 3-year term that guaranteed a Super Bowl appearance and a $255 million contract, Hurts' play dipped in 23. His quarterback ranking fell from 4th to 12th. His 15 interceptions were so uncharacteristic that the total nearly matched that of his entire 3-year combination of 18. A knee injury, okay, they're using knee injury, that he tried his best to manage clearly affected him, according to several evaluators. He was playing hurt, an NFC executive said. The Eagles tried to downplay that, but he didn't look right. He wasn't the same runner. He was in the past, and passing the ball was tough for him this past season. One AFC scout said. He always will be in that 7 to 12 range, depending on how productive he is each year. Also note, the Eagle offense became stale as a whole, according to high-ranking NFL team officials, and the predictability offensive attack also affected Hurts' stock. This is an evaluation from NFL evaluators. I got this from a dear friend of mine who's an NFL general manager. That's how they look at him. 7 and 12, and he wasn't the same last year because they're coaching him differently, and they're trying to put him in the characteristic of what these quarterbacks look like that win these Super Bowls. Okay? Well, they just justified it, Sills. Backtrack what? Backtrack what? What are you talking about? Sills, the team moved away from a gradual transition from the RPO to a pass-heavy system. They did. It was a night and day offensive maneuver. They scrapped the RPO and forced a pass-heavy scheme on him. Typical plug-and-play mentality. That's a typical front office mentality. Okay? Okay, Martin, once again, that was never documented. It's a belief he was injured. It was never documented. He was never on injured reserve. But once again, okay, it validates that he was hurt. If you want to go there, Martin, that's why the Eagles are taking the RPO away and trying to make him into a pocket passer, which he'll never be, because Greg Cosell says it. He can't read defenses to this point. You're going to get a 23 season the same way you did a year ago. Nothing will change. What's going to change? Kellen Moore's play calling? This comes down to the player. Will there be better routes? Better disguise routes? Possibly. But this is going to, and get this, your defense is not going to help him. You can't have 3 and outs because your defense is worse than even a year ago now. It's worse than a year ago. Some will go, wait, we got more. No, you don't. Prospects, potential. We don't know yet. Might be. But there's no sure thing. There's not one sure thing on that side of the ball except Jalen Carter. Not one sure thing. Projections, prospects, potential. Worst words you can have going into a regular season. Cosell also said that Jalen did poorly in 23. He did well in 22. 2 different styles of play. Forte. That's my point. Thank you for accentuating the point. Correct. Fundamentally, the Eagles are changing him because they know that style of play will not put him in the Super Bowl again. Colin Kaepernick and all these other guys, they totally get there. There's no doubt. But you're not going to consistently be in that room playing that style of play that he did in 22. And actually, I think that style of play in 22, how many people believe that Lamar Jackson's going to win a Super Bowl? Let's go there with that. It's not sure it will be a mess either. No, not at all. How many people think that Lamar Jackson is going to win a Super Bowl? Actually, Hurts doesn't come close to Purdy. Check the stats. Hey, Niner, correct. He does a great job spreading the ball around. Okay? He does a great job. How many people believe Lamar Jackson is going to win a Super Bowl? I don't think so. I don't think he's set up to win in the postseason. I don't think he has the skill set to win in the postseason. I just don't. Because he's not going to go back and forth with Burrow and Mahomes and beat him in an AFC title game. No way. And you know how you beat the Ravens? Get a lead on them. Make him throw the ball. I would make Lamar Jackson. You know how I would defend Lamar? Make him throw the ball 37 times. Same way the Chiefs did. Spagnuolo knew. Mahomes gets up on him, and once they got up on him, that AFC title game was over. Because he's a one-dimensional ball player. He's not going to win from the pocket. Now, if he gets a lead on you, it's over. It's over. And he's so dominant, there's very few guys in the league that can throw themselves out of trouble. Hurts can't throw the Eagles out of trouble. There's a lot of guys who can't. Burrow, Mahomes. Those guys can throw their teams out of trouble. How many times have we seen Patrick Mahomes behind 20 points come back and win? JM says Baltimore's defense took a step back. They lose the secondary coach. They lost the coordinator. They lost Patrick Queen. Lost a couple dudes on that side of the ball. It's going to be interesting to see if they can recover. That's a flawed assessment of the Eagles organization. If they had watched 22 season, they would have seen that we were more balanced. Their balanced performance led to 2 Super Bowl appearances. Dude, don't ever confuse Jalen Hurts for being a passer like Nick Foles, because he's not. But balance was there, to your point. Yeah, no, they weren't balanced last year, especially down the stretch. And they've changed the quarterback. As a matter of fact, Greg Cosell, that's his opinion. Their offense didn't help them. The 23 offense, they took the RPOs away. They took the read options away, tried to make him a pocket passer, and he can't read defenses. That's his assessment. I've been telling you that for 3 years. It's not a rip. You're just pushing the cart before the horse here. Hey, early on in Brady's career, you know how Brady won? But here's the difference with the way Brady was coached early in his career. Everything was underneath. They weren't these so-called fucking stupid explosion plays that the Eagles want. You're making a quarterback who was a project coming out of college try to have explosion plays when even a guy who won 7 Super Bowls, I'll say 6 because 7 he started throwing some of it downfield until they changed it up. But at the end of the day, let's be fair here. Brady was a check down guy his entire career, and that's how they coached him. There were no explosion plays in New England. It was tight end centric, and it was all screens. A couple slants across the middle. They won Super Bowls with Deion Branch, Danny Amendola, Wes Welker, and Julian Edelman. They weren't winning them with high-flying guys. They were winning them with cross routes, screen passes, flare passes to the backs, and passes to the tight ends. And the one thing the Eagles, just like New England, have always had, they've always had exceptional tight ends in New England. The bread and butter of Brady's entire passing career is through the tight end position. Ben Coates, Aaron Hernandez, and of course Gronkowski. That's how they won. They weren't winning with explosion plays for a limited passer. It blows your mind when you hear other people now have come to the realization he doesn't fit the criteria of what you're looking for, and he can't read defenses. These are other people saying this. These are professional NFL scouts and GMs and evaluators going, the league has caught up with what he is and what his strengths and weaknesses are. He's got to evolve into something. And the Eagles want to evolve him into a pocket passer. He's never been that in his career. You want to give him time? That's one thing. But to sit there and start calling, hey, Kyler Murray, is he in the room with Jalen? No. Do I think that Jalen Hurts in 5 years or 4 years from now will be superior? Yes. But the problem with Hurts has in Philly, your constant revolving door of coaches. Okay? And he'll never get the consistency of having the same game plan. Mahomes has had the same game plan. Hey, let me ask you this. Bob, tell me this. You think Patrick Mahomes is benefiting from having the same game plan the last 6 years? And the same coordinator and the same voice? As talented as he is, as super talented as he is, do you think that Mahomes is benefiting? Since 2018, Patrick Mahomes has had the same guy in his ear, the same system, the same terminology. You think that's benefiting him growing into being the quarterback he is right now? Do you think that helps him? Yes, he's gifted. Yes, he's talented. How talented would he be if he was in Philly and he had coaches being changed in every single year, new coordinators, new schemes, well, they don't really do the personnel in Philly like that. That's a cool thing. And they do a good job at building the team around him. You know what? They don't do a good job of Jalen around him. They don't build continuity in the coaching staff around him. They do a horrible job of that. Seals, do you like Anthony Richardson even though he was a dual threat quarterback? I like him, Anthony, more now with Shane Steichen. I'm going to be very interested in to see what Shane does. Do I think Anthony Richardson lasts a long time in this league? He's probably got a 7 or 8 year career, 9-year career playing that style of football. Think of this, senor. He couldn't even get through his first year without getting hurt with that style of play. What makes you think he's going to last 10 years plus? Look at Jay Brown saying that it's 55 minutes of hate. What hate? I'm saying he can get better. I'm saying the Eagles are coaching him correct, not coaching him right. I never said he sucked. I never said he was bad. I'm telling you what others are saying. And you don't like it. Hey, Jay Brown, that's too bad what others are now coming to the realization of what your quarterback is. You don't like it. Well, that's who he is. He said it. He can't read defenses, but you want him to. Okay. Can you get better at that? Yes. It took Brady 25 years to be the savant that he was. You're asking a guy to do it in 2 with different voices every year. I find that impossible. I find that impossible. Murray had better passing seasons with less talent than Hurts had around him. And he did it in his first season. I think Kyler Murray is a good player if having good coaching around him. Media said Chiefs weren't going to be good without Tyreek Hill too. Dude, that guy doesn't need anybody because he's got Reed and he's generational talent. He could win in Chicago. He might not win a Super Bowl, but that guy was like LeBron James in his prime. I'm talking Mahomes. That guy could go to the shittiest team on the planet and win. And I disagree with the excuse maker, Joe Schoen up in New York. It's because you have a suck-ass O-line and a suck-ass quarterback doesn't mean somebody like that can't go in and win. Seals continuity, Bird's confidence. Confidence builds consistency. Consistency moves the chains. Move the chains, wins games. Correct. Absolutely. Should have kept Doug. We'd be in better shape. Kevin, that was never going to happen. The front office and all want to have control of how they develop players. They do a horrible job at developing certain positions on your team. Linebackers, defensive side of the ball. That's why they brought Vic in. Hey, I heard something yesterday from Clint Hurt that you're going to love because Clint watches the show when he can and gets an opportunity to. So, Clint, thank you very much. You want to hear this? Under the direction of Vic Fangio, there's going to be certain days that they're going to be longer practices this coming training camp because Vic demanded that they have a little bit more meaningful day practices. There's going to be more meaningful day practices with extended periods of time when it comes to installing the defense. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Okay? Look, Hurts has a second best winning percentage after trailing 10. Dude, Forte, this is not what we're talking. Hey, Brock Purdy, 17-4. 2 NFC championship games in a row. You want to go there? 4,100 passing yards. I could put Purdy ahead of him in every single conversation on what he does from the pocket better than what he does. And with the same type of talent that he has in front of him, he does 10 times more with the talent around him than what Jalen does. Jalen doesn't even utilize his tight end. They barely utilize the running back when it comes to passing game stuff. McCaffrey's a weapon, both passing and running. Hurts does none of that. I don't even remember the last time I saw a check down pass to a running back. The wide receiver 3, you might as well play 10 on 11. I mean, you don't even go to the position. You had 36 total receptions last year. So you barely use your tight end. You don't use wide receiver 3. You don't have any kind of flare patterns or any kind of check downs to your running backs. You throw to 2 dudes. This guy throws to Kittle, Ayuk, Debo, McCaffrey. He goes all around the yard. And he had the third least attempts. And he had the number 3 most passing yards. Talk about efficiency. Watch how Trevor Lawrence, Jackson, Mahomes, Herbert, and even Stroud all had relatively stable coordinators and head coaches compared to Hurts. I think right there, Devontae, thank you for the super chat. Devontae, I think that right there bleeds right into a little bit of what Greg Cosell's saying. Dude, hey, one more time. Thank you, Niner. One more time. Do I think Jalen can develop into being a better progressive reader of defenses in the next 3-4 years? Yeah. If he had the same voice in his ear, yeah. Look, you want to get stability? What's the one way you get stability for Jalen Hurts and for him to become a good pocket passer? James, watch this. You tell me. What would be the best answer to help Hurts develop into a good pocket passer? What would be the one thing? There you go, Kyle. Thank you for answering that, Kyle. Play calling head coach. You need to hire Shane Steichen as your head football coach. Shane Steichen is the right fit for Philly with Jalen as a quarterback, not Nick. And you know it. They let him walk out the building. And with that, Jalen Hurts' progression walked out the building. It's a fact because get this. You know why? You know why that's fact? Look at it. Does Shane Steichen look in any way the way he play called in 22 to have any similarities to what Kellen Moore does? So is Kellen Moore going to be more like Shane? Because the best of Jalen was 22. Well, tell me how that's going to look. So Kellen Moore is going to look more like Shane this year. Is that right? Or is he going to look more like Dak Prescott coordinator? Who's he going to look like? Combination? Why wouldn't you just hire a guy that fits the guy's skill set? Unless you're trying to change him. And the criteria of what a Super Bowl contending quarterback looks like. They are totally changing him. Like Greg Cosell said. And you're not giving him the time to become a progressive when it comes to reading defenses. This is really not on Jalen. Does Jalen have talent? Yes. Look at it. 3,500 plus yards, 800 rushing, 22 plus touchdown passes, 12 plus rushing touchdowns. Obviously, he's gifted. You're coaching him wrong. There's no other way to look at it. That's a talented player. Can he play in this league? That's not a question. How do you get him the max to win? It's not from the pocket. Not yet. 3 years from now, maybe. Maybe. Prince goes, Shanahan directs him on where to go. Okay. How come Jalen doesn't have that? That's right, Prince. At the very end, the Eagles lack that person for Hurts. Yep. There lies the whole conversation in the 2024 season. Is Kellen Moore going to be able to be that guy to help him know where to go with the ball? Because as of right now, as a young player, as any player in this league, Patrick Mahomes, his first couple years in the league, said he had no idea about how to read a defense. Tom Brady said the same thing. But magically, for some of you Eagle fans, you think that doesn't apply to Jalen. It applied to Brady and Mahomes, but not your guy? You got your head up your ass if you think that. And then with the constant revolving door of coaches, how do you develop that? What's happening now is that everyone's now having an epiphany. Hey, the guy's not as good as we thought reading defenses. Can he get better at it? Yeah. Brady says it every single podcast on his show. Can you get better at being a progressive reader of defenses? If you do your homework, you put in the time, yes. If Tom Brady says it, I believe it. If Patrick Mahomes says it, I believe it. But here's the difference. That guy had Dave O'Brien or whatever his name was and Josh McDaniels in New England and a little bit of Charlie Weiss for 25 years. Mahomes has had the same voice in his ear. Jordan Love has a voice in his ear in Matt LaFleur. Hey, do you think there's any coincidence that Brock Purdy is who he is because Kyle Shanahan is in his ear like Prince says? Kyle Shanahan ain't going anywhere. You know why? Kyle Shanahan is instrumental in the development of Brock Purdy. Without Kyle Shanahan in that building, now I know Kyle Shanahan ain't going anywhere. They're not firing Kyle Shanahan. You know why? If I'm going to pay Brock Purdy $60 million coming up, I'm going to make sure he has the best play calling head coach that's out there. Or guess what? The Philadelphia Eagles, my opinion, I would hire Kyle Shanahan in 7 seconds for Jalen Hurts. 7 seconds. What do you need, coach? Kyle Shanahan with the same kind of offensive skill set. And by the way, he tried to make a Jalen Hurts of his own with Trey Lance in San Francisco. Jason, that's right. Remember what you said. It took Montana 6 years. And get this, Joe won Super Bowls still. But it took Joe. Walsh said it. Hey, what did I do? Why Joe rolled right all the time? I wanted him to read half the field. I didn't want him to have to pick up the entire field because Joe wasn't really good at reading defenses right away. I'm talking Joe Montana. I'm talking Joe Montana. JM goes, Shanahan didn't like the RPO. No, he didn't like the RPO the way Trey Lance ran it. You're telling me you wouldn't like the way Jalen Hurts ran it in 22 and you're a head coach? Well, I'm freaking firing you. Montana couldn't read defenses early. So he made him read half the field. And as Joe got better, sitting down with him, Bill Walsh showing him how to read it, pre-snap reads, Montana was unbeatable. Montana is the best thing I've ever seen on a football field. I didn't get a chance to play against Tom, but I've never seen anything like Joe Montana. It's just head movement, moving guys around, accurate as hell, could move, beat legendary quarterbacks in Super Bowls. I mean, and crushed them. The guy's the Michael Jordan of Super Bowls, undefeated, no interceptions in the postseason in Super Bowls. Can you imagine throwing 15 touchdowns and 4 Super Bowl wins and no interceptions? And you beat Elway and Marino and guys like that. And you crushed them with guys like Freddie Solomon. But he had Walsh. Sills aside, Cliff Kingsbury, Cosmo says, who else would have been a good OC for Jalen? Let's take a look at that on the college level. You know who I would like for him? I'm okay with the Texas coach. I'm okay with Steve Sarkisian. Lane Kiffin. Guys who coach that style on a daily basis. You want to get me a guy who coached Dak and change him around. How about a guy who coaches that style? No college coach is allowed. Really? Cliff Kingsbury's one. Cliff Kingsbury's one. The thing about Joe was he always came through in big games. That's why people say he was money. Charlie, the fact that Montana would win those big games had a calm about him. He was never too high, never too low. Jalen has a lot of that personality in him. Doesn't get too high or too low. Montana looked at it as competition. Hey, you win some, you lose some. That's how he looked at it. It didn't kill him. Like Brady's more driven. What did Brady say on his podcast the other day? One of the things that he wished that he could have done was what? He wished that he could have enjoyed himself more. He wished that he could have enjoyed himself more. Look, guys, I don't think this is a poor assessment of Hurts. Does Jalen fit the criteria of winning Super Bowls? No. Are the Eagles trying to change him into that? Yes. Okay, well, if you're doing that, give him time. Jalen Hurts is going to be a bumpy season this year. He's going to be great next year. If Kellen Moore's still his coordinator, that'll be a plus. Hurts could be on his way. There's no coincidence that Shane Steichen is the only coach that Jalen Hurts has had in the last 4 years that he's had for more than a year and a half. I can't believe people are not plugging that in, that you're stunting this kid's growth by the people around him. And then you make an asshole move by putting a coordinator around him with no experience. How is that helping a $55 million investment? I asked that day one, and you guys are telling me, well, they were boys because they played Tonka toys together when they were kids. I don't want my best friend as my coordinator. I want the best coordinator around me. That's nothing to do with it. The problem isn't about RPOs. It's about not having a single route to the middle of the field and using Smith as a go route player. Victor, do you know how you get the middle of the field open? If you have issues, and again, I get this shit from Bill Walsh. He used to come on the show all the time when we were up at KNBR. Do you understand, you know how you get that open? Slide around in the pocket more. Create passing lanes. Move the defenders. One step right, you move the entire defense. Go back the opposite way. There's a reason why Peyton Manning used to get out there before games and have 3-hour practices every single game before a Sunday ball game. They wanted to play a 3-hour game prior to the 3-hour game. Manning already had an idea where he was going and had a game plan etched in his mind. By the way, Kellen Moore, when I hear people say this is the most obnoxious thing you can hear. When I hear people say Kellen Moore is really going to be an impact on Jalen Hurts, I don't want Kellen Moore to be an impact on Jalen Hurts. I want Jalen Hurts to take more autonomy and more control of his own destiny by having his own game plan that he goes into the games with, where he fundamentally knows that it's his plan. Kellen Moore's not going to win you games. Jalen Hurts is going to win you games. When that dynamic happens, that it's Hurts' offensive plays, it's Hurts' game plan, that's when you're going to win a Super Bowl. Until that time, telling him where to go, hey, I'll agree with somebody who made that comment about Purdy. The difference in that Super Bowl was Kyle Shanahan was telling Brock Purdy where to go with the ball. Hey, Niner all day. The difference in that Super Bowl was Kyle Shanahan telling Brock Purdy where to go with the ball. And Patrick Mahomes knowing where to go with it because of the schooling he got from Andy. And him taking the intel and processing it and saying, yeah, this is what we're going to do. Those are your championship quarterbacks. That's when you know. You actually think Coach Moore was really the offensive coordinator in Indianapolis with Peyton Manning there? Or was it more Peyton Manning and his offensive game plan? He probably laid plays out. They worked the game plan together. What do you like, Peyton? I like this against the Ravens. I like this against the Patriots. We're going to run this. I like these screen passes. We got to get Edgerrin James going. Or we've got to get at the time Marshall Faulk or whomever was running back. We have to get these guys going. I think Dallas Clark could be a real big factor here coming across the seam in the middle. And then Coach Moore would put that together. He had the same coordinator for 10 years in Indy. So wait. Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Patrick Mahomes, all have had the same coordinators for 10 years or more. Jalen hasn't had the same coordinator, but for more than a year and a half. And you think you're going to develop that guy into a pocket passer. Never happened. Never happened. Never happened. The control of the front office is stunning his development. And isn't it funny? The same dilemmas that are playing out for Hurts played out for Wentz. Trouble reading blitzes, holding onto the ball too much. You don't see the similarities? You're blind if you do. You don't. I mean, honestly, I'm coming to the epiphany. This is far removed from Jalen. He's a good player. Hurts is a good player. He belongs in this league. He can win. Let him. Get the fuck out of his way. Stop micromanaging this guy. Get the fuck out of his way. They're in the way. They are in the way of developing this guy. It's organizationally, absolutely. Hey, you've won me over. Listening to Greg Cosell, Greg Cosell's criticism wasn't saying that Jalen can't play. You're doing shit to the kid. He has struggles reading defenses. Hey, what an epiphany. A young quarterback in the NFL struggling reading defenses. Wow, I haven't heard that before. The greatest coaches and the greatest quarterbacks all have said it. Montana was like, you think Dan Devine at Notre Dame taught him how to read defenses? They barely started him when he was in college. You think Lloyd Carr developed Tom Brady at Michigan? They barely liked him. He got around great coaches that were stable organizations that they had these same guys for years. There's no coincidence to that. There is no coincidence. That was the era of coaching trees. Now owners are hiring guys you've never heard of. Yeah, and get this, have no disciple, have no fundamental. Didn't Brady say this just recently on one of his podcasts? That the schooling and development of the young quarterbacks in the NFL today seems to be behind. This is what he's talking about with Hurts. This is exactly what he's talking about. You're in the way of Jalen Hurts. Nobody ever ran Walsh's defense. It was his invention. It's not the same. His defense? Walsh is an offensive coach. That's not true. Mike Holmgren was his OC. He ran the West Coast offense in Green Bay. The West Coast offense is what Kyle Shanahan and Mike Shanahan ran in Denver. What are you talking about? The West Coast offense became the Tiffany offense in the National Football League. Nobody ran Bill Walsh's offense. It wasn't West Coast. What the fuck are you talking about? I'm talking about developing an offensive-minded kid. Who in the world is having a conversation on developing a defense? Where are you? Who is talking about a defense? That was drafting. Who is talking about a West Coast? I've never heard of a West Coast defense. They ran a 34. A West Coast defense? Since when is a 34 a West Coast defense? What are you talking about? I mean, you make shit up. There's no such thing. A West Coast defense? What are you talking about? You'll have to show me that one. Okay? James Jones, I don't know. I've never heard of a West Coast defense. It's like new football. I've never heard of it. Totally. Let him run RPO and run the ball. If he gets hurt, he gets hurt. Rather pay Jalen for being? Absolutely. Charlie, they don't want that, though. Because they don't think that criteria is how you do it. What they're doing is they're going with the analytics. The analytics tell them that Hurts' style and Lamar Jackson's style won't win Super Bowls. This is an analytics decision. There it lies. This is an analytics decision. It's an analytics decision to coach him like this. You got professional people who do this shit for a living, too. And by the way, that wasn't my evaluation I read. That was Dan Morgan's of Carolinas, one of the general managers that passes it around. That was the evaluation of Jalen Hurts and about 15 other GMs and scouts. That's how they see the kid. The Eagles don't want to go through the criteria. Like I said earlier, football people need to be making the football decisions. That's an analytics decision, man, and what they're doing. They see he doesn't fit the criteria right now, skill set wise. That's why he's holding onto the ball too long. That's why he's taking hits with blitzes. Same as Wentz. The Eagles are coaching him the same way they coach Jalen Hurts. Jalen Wentz, mine will be. Seems to be. Okay. West Coast defense is guessing each other's we can at least West Coast defense. I don't know what that is. You'll have to help me. I've never heard of it. Okay. I've actually never heard of a West Coast defense. West Coast defense. Hey, James Jones, the West Coast defense. Yeah. That's a new one for me. Just turned 44 yesterday. And first I've heard of the West Coast defense. Hey, thank you, Ford. The West Coast defense. That's a new one, too. Me too. Hey, Forrest, we'll agree on that one, right? Oh, and get this. Dre goes, he meant the West Coast offense. So wait, you're trying to tell me that the offensive coordinator, Mike Holmgren, for Bill Walsh and for George Seifert in San Francisco didn't take the West Coast offense up to Green Bay? Andy Reid runs the West Coast offense. He's a product of the West Coast offense. Mike Holmgren, Mike Shanahan, all those guys were under Walsh. Denny Green ran West Coast offense. Nobody ever ran it. I could name you 100 coaches who ran that thing. Sills West Coast defense. Sounds like a strip club. Yeah. Yeah. Holmgren didn't run it before Montana. Montana, dude, Bill Walsh was the OC. When Joe left for Kansas City, Holmgren was elevated to the offensive coordinator in San Francisco. He got the job off the West Coast offense. Bill Walsh developed it actually in Cincinnati when he was the OC, when he was there with Ken Anderson. Holy shit. Read a fucking book. It does, Sills. Yeah. Right? The West Coast defense. So wait, the new, hey, the 34 is the new version of the West Coast defense. All right. Yeah. So explain the West Coast defense, please. Yeah, well, I could easily do that. It's a little bit over here. You have to have a really colorful defensive end with a really good personality. Your nose tackle, he has to be a little bit kind of bullish. And the other end, well, you know what they say about the other end. There's your West Coast defense. 7 linebackers and only 2 guys deep. There's your West Coast defense. Very colorful. Dude, it's no. I'm actually thinking it's funny now. Yeah, senor. Don't get me in trouble, man. Dave wants that 4:30, and really soon we're going to talk to Xander here. Yeah, the West Coast defense. That's a good one, man. Yo, hey, Flexen, you have to have a colorful end. You have to have kind of like a really bully kind of like, nose. And the other end, well, 7 linebackers. And you always have to have 2 guys deep. There's your West Coast defense. Hey, yeah, I'm in. Yay. Let's have a parade. Oh, man. Joe showed how great he was when he went to Kansas City. Yeah, he was the last guy outside of Mahomes to take the Chiefs to the AFC Championship game was Montana. It was Joe Montana. Can you believe that? A 44-year-old Montana was the last guy that took the team to an AFC title game. How you doing? Yeah, the West Coast defense. That's a fucking new one to me, man. How you doing? Wow. Wait, before I bring Xander up here, you don't think that there's any coincidence that the same things that Hurts is struggling from right now, blitzes and holding on to the ball too long, are the same things that ended Carson Wentz's career in Philly? You don't think there's any coincidence to that? No? Anything? Right? Hold on here. Before I get Xander up here, I got to read this. I'm going to read this to Xander here. Let's bring up the co-host. Birds 365 does a great job in the morning with John McMullen.
What's up, Big Sills?
Every single day here with right after, by the way, Mark Farzetta starts our broadcast off. So let me read this to you here. This is an evaluation from some general managers and executives on Jalen Hurts. After year 3, star turned that guaranteed a Super Bowl appearance and $255 million contract. Hurts' play dipped in 23. His quarterback ranking fell from 4th to 12th. His 15 interceptions were so uncharacteristic that the total nearly matched that of his 3 previous seasons combined with 18. A knee injury that he tried his best to manage clearly affected him, according to several evaluators. He was playing hurt, an NFL executive said. The Eagles tried to downplay that, but he didn't look right. He was the same runner. He wasn't the same runner he was in the past, and passing the ball was tough for him. Added a 4th scout, he'll always be in that 7 to 12 range, depending on how productive he is each year. Also a note, the Eagle offense became stale as a whole, according to a high-ranking NFL team official, and that predictability of the offensive attack also hurt his stock as a quarterback. And then you hear what Greg Cosell says, that he can't read defenses. And as of right now, he's struggling reading it. I mean, Xander, are any of these people? I don't really think it's trash talking. I think it's part of the development of a young player.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a big part of it. This is one of my big fears with Jalen in terms of how long is the shelf life and has it already have we already reached it? John's like, don't change the quarterback. And I'm like, okay, I agree. Don't change the quarterback. But if we don't change him, are we ever going to see the guy we saw in 2022 again? Because he wasn't that bad last year, right? It was mostly turnover related, but you and I both know it didn't pass the eye test. Like, he didn't look like the guy he looked like in 2022. When he came onto the field in 22, it was like, don't take your eyes off the TV screen, because at any moment, Jalen Hurts could do something great. And now I just didn't see that last year. And now I'm wondering if all of these other things, the rating of the defenses, the being a more traditional style of a quarterback, they're going to become more and more heightened as we get deeper into Jalen Hurts' career, because it's a tough league. It's a physical league. He's probably not going to be able to run like he could early in his career. And it's going to start to matter more and more. And then you see the report from Cosell. Everybody's talking about it. On Inside the Birds, it was good stuff. Good shout out to Inside the Birds. Good podcast over there. Yeah, I mean, it's concerning, but what are we going to do? I mean, I think I think he can get back to form in a way, but eventually he's going to have to read defenses. Eventually he's going to have to throw the ball to the middle of the field. Eventually he's going to have to get better at the things that he struggles at. He can't live and die by his skill set as it is right now.
Let me throw this at you here. How much do you think a talented player like Mahomes benefits for the last 9 years having, or 6 years, whatever it is, Mahomes having the same play caller in his ear?
Say that one more time.
How much do you think that benefits in the development of Patrick Mahomes having the same play caller in his ear?
Yeah, it benefits a lot, especially in today's NFL where you don't have a lot of practice time, right? I mean, back in your day, there was 2 days, 3 days. It was like
for 3 months.
You had time. You had reps to get this stuff down. Now you have 25 practices in off season, and they're 48 minutes long, and you're not allowed to touch anybody. So it's a different game now, and the continuity thing is definitely a big problem. But when you choose to go with the CEO head coach, which the Eagles have evidently done, if you have success as a team, you're going to lose coordinators. That's part of the path that they've chosen to go down. And, we're going to see if it ultimately turns out to work in their favor or work against them. It could go either way. By the way, we missed the super chat. I don't want to leave him up there. Let me go to him. The disciple. He says, hey, Dan, is Xander going to hire Skip Bayless? All right, let's put together a fund of the JAKIB listeners. And if we can pull enough cash in the pot, I will go and I'll give Big Sills a big raise, and we'll hire Skip Bayless, and we'll do Skip Bayless and Big Sills. That'll break YouTube here in Philly. But no, we are not hiring Skip Bayless.
Let me throw this at you here. You know where I got this from too? I think Emmanuel Acho is pretty good with this take here, and he went back and did some homework. And on First Things First, I think it is, or is it's Speak for Yourself. And this is what he said here. In the last 15 years, here's the prototypical quarterback that wins Super Bowls. 30 touchdowns. Guy runs for about 150 yards. 1 touchdown. That is what your quarterback that hangs around the rim each and every single year, keeping you competitive. When you have a guy that is north of 3,500 passing yards, 800 rushing, 15 or 20, I would say, north of 20 passing, 15 rushing touchdowns. That's not the criteria for what a Super Bowl winning quarterback looks like. Lamar Jackson and Jalen, by the way, I'm not saying Jalen's not a good player. He is a good player. But the prototypical guy and how NFL teams look at the guys that they're looking at, and quite frankly, this is what the Eagles are morphing the guy into. They want him to be more of that criteria right now than the 22 criteria. You see how they're coaching. The OC they hired dictates that same kind of criteria. That's why, Xander, when I say Kellen Moore and Jalen, they're going to be better next year if they stay intact.
Definitely.
It could be a little bumpy for half the season this year where they're going to win games they should and they're going to lose games they shouldn't, because it's going to be bumpy like that. But as long as it gets better, isn't that what this is about? Is evolving the kid into being a better player.
Yeah, but at that point, is that just an admission of you decided to go down the wrong route, and now you're trying to put lipstick on a pig? And I'm not saying Jalen Hurts is a pig, but when you turn Jalen Hurts into something he's not, he's going to start to look like a pig. And did we pay the wrong guy? Like, if we didn't want to pay a guy that did the type of things that Jalen Hurts does and had the type of skill set that he has, then why did we pay him?
Why are you hiring coordinators that don't fit his skill set?
Yeah, but that I don't like that point.
He doesn't.
Shane Steichen never coached a QB like Jalen Hurts before Jalen Hurts.
Because Shane Steichen wasn't the offensive coordinator in Indy. It was
Okay.
Nick Sirianni.
It doesn't matter. The principle is the same, that Kellen has never worked with a quarterback like Jalen
Okay.
Hurts. If
Shane
he's a good
Steichen has
offensive
never
coordinator,
coached a drop back quarterback either.
who did? Shane?
Never.
Well, he did previously. He wasn't the coordinator, but he did. He was working with Phillip Rivers. He was working with a lot of drop back quarterbacks.
Okay. Well, when he was a coordinator, he was not calling plays for drop back guys.
No,
And
but
the guy he just drafted,
they're
was
at
a
different
dual threat
phases of
guy.
their career, though. They were at different phases of their career.
Let me ask you this then about Shane. If Shane thought that the drop back quarterback system, which the criteria fits for quarterbacks to winning Super Bowls, was the way to go, why did he go the opposite way to the style that fits his play calling with Anthony Richardson?
Well, they hired him after they drafted Anthony Richardson.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, they did.
No,
right?
I don't think so. I think
No,
he
they
was
hired him that. They hired him that offseason. That's right. They hired him right before they went into that draft. Well, I mean, maybe that's the quarterback that they decided to take. By the way, I think Anthony Richardson is a different player than Jalen Hurts. He is bigger. You know, he's got more physical gifts. He can throw the ball a lot farther. He's got a cannon of an arm. Now he's a similar style in that he's a little bit dual threat, but they're not the same exact guy. I don't know. I mean, look, we're gonna have to see. This year is going to be is a major wait and see game for Jalen Hurts and for the offense, and it's either going to work or we're going to fall flat on our face and we're going to be looking for a new quarterback. Obviously, most Eagle fans are looking for the former, and we want to get back to form. What are you going to do, Big Sills? I mean, that's the quarterback we paid. We're not moving on from Jalen Hurts, so they're going to have to find a way to make it work. Are you suggesting that they have to change him to find success?
I'm suggesting they just get the fuck out of the way and let the kid play. And beat him.
Yeah, I agree. But
get out of the way.
The problem is it's the NFL. And quarterbacks that run like that don't last. Look at Cam Newton. His arm was like was a noodle by the end of his career. He was an MVP of the league.
That's just the Super Bowl.
I know, and that's the quarterback that we have. So
he's 6'6".
My fear is that the shelf life is not expired, but the peak, we're on the way down on the other side. And that's my fear.
I'm not there with that.
I'm not saying as a player. I'm saying with the injuries, with the attrition, with the physicality of the NFL, Jalen's never going to be able to be the guy he was in 22 again. Look at last year. He wasn't the same guy. It wasn't an entirely different offense. He couldn't do the same things. He was injured. He was beat up. He was kneeling behind the line of scrimmage to avoid getting hits. This is the NFL. This is not college where Jalen is a man amongst boys. He's a man amongst men. And it's wearing on him. And you're going to start to see them try and change the quarterback. And I don't know if that's a great philosophy either. But my fear is that he won't be able to get back to form in what he was before 2023, which was.
Can I tell you where I'm leaning towards now? That there's so much inconsistency around him right now with the coaching, with the philosophy, with the mentality of what you want him to do, that it can't be, it just cannot be beneficial.
It's a little overblown, to be blunt. It's a little overblown.
What do you mean?
You lost Shane Steichen. The offense technically didn't change. Your play caller changed.
They did. They changed fundamental philosophy. They didn't run the RPO, and they got off the read option.
Well, I mean, the offense as a whole was the same. They ran different plays within that offense. But, I mean, are we going to be at a point where if Jalen doesn't have the perfect coordinator, we're fucked?
Well, if you took Andy Reid away, you think he's the same guy in KC? I don't.
No, I don't. I don't think he's the same guy. But, I mean, I think Andy Reid is talented, or Patrick Mahomes is talented enough to be able to make it work with somebody else. Now, Andy's the perfect fit.
I think he's morphing into being like his own OC out there, because I saw that. Like I said, Xander, the difference in the Super Bowl was Kyle Shanahan's telling Brock Purdy where to throw the ball. Patrick Mahomes knew where to throw the ball in the fifth quarter, because you know why? The schooling, the talent, everything that he had been taught.
Yeah, but what's the solution to the problem you're presenting? That's where I'm struggling.
Hire a play calling head coach. Yeah, you need somebody like Matt LaFleur. You need somebody like Steichen. You need somebody that's going to be constantly in his ear for the next 5 years. And hey, do you think there's any consistency that Coach Moore was there for 11 years with Manning? You had Josh McDaniel there for 15 years in New England with Brady. You've got 9 years now with Mahomes. You had 15 years in San Francisco with Montana and with Walsh. There's something to the fact that these guys had the same plays and the same system, and they were just getting better at doing one thing. Get this. Tom Brady only had to work on this, consistently worrying about reading defenses. You know what Jalen has to worry about now? Terminology, blocking schemes, all the rest of the shit that we've been talking about. Brady wasn't worrying about any of that shit. He was worrying about where's the blitz coming? Where's the pre-snap read? Who is the key on this one play? That's how you develop, not going, well, I got to worry about blitzes. Do I have the blitz covers this year, or is it going to be Cam Jurgens? I mean, Brady wasn't worrying about that shit.
Yeah, I know, but and everybody thinks I'm bashing Jalen Hurts. I'm really not trying to bash
You're not
Jalen Hurts.
bashing him. You're bashing how they're doing them.
I'm trying to see through what this is going to look like. If we brought Kellen Moore in to reincarnate what we had with Shane Steichen, this conversation is mute. It doesn't matter. It's 100% irrelevant, and we should see Hurts return to 2022 form. That's if physically he's able to become that person. If they go the other route and they try and make Jalen Hurts something he is not traditionally, what's going to be the end result of that? A revolving door at coordinator, playing out the contract, and Hurts never getting back to the 2022 MVP form. That's an ugly thing to think about as an Eagle fan. We don't want that. But that might be where we are.
How about, well, to the point that I tried making you, do you agree with me when I say this? Do you not see the similarities that Wentz struggled on blitzes and held on to the ball too long? And both these guys have the same characteristic that each other had the last two starting quarterbacks. Do you think that's a coincidence?
No. I mean, I think they're both that similar style of quarterback, just in that they love the big play and they're playmaker. They have playmaking abilities. I mean, remember, Wentz grew up in freaking North Dakota, man. He was the greatest football player on turf for the first 20 years of his life. And there wasn't another guy that was close to him. So he was inherently a guy that always wanted to create the big play. In a way, Jalen is similar. Jalen likes to get out the pocket, be a playmaker, and you don't see him throw the ball out of bounds often. You don't see him, check it down and get to the next play. That's been one of the knocks on him from the fan base that I've been reading in our comments for years. Take what's given to you and go to the next play. Jalen's a playmaker. That's what he likes to do. Carson was the same way. Now, I think there's pros and cons to it, but when you point out that we suck against the blitz, we talked about it yesterday with the offensive line. I brought it up with John McMullen today. It's more on the quarterback. And it's not a knock on him. It's just his style of play.
And it's young. It's being young.
Exactly.
Brady sucked with it early.
Hero ball. It's called hero ball. I mean, that's what they had. And there are times when hero ball works. There are times when they make a play and you're like, holy shit, look at the talent this guy has.
Buffalo.
You saw it with Wentz. You saw it in Buffalo. You see moments. You remember that game the first year he had starting? I think it was against the Saints, and he puts his foot in the ground and goes one way, and he runs into the end zone. I mean, he juked that. There's moments when it works, but you got to pick and choose, and you got to live with the downsides of it as well if you're going to commit to that style of a quarterback. But to your point, yeah, it's definitely some similarities for sure.
See, when Greg Cosell says that he struggles with reading defenses, it's now that everyone's starting to come to that epiphany on it. And the problem with reading defenses, Xander, is that coordinators are now going to know that. And now, get this, who do you think has the advantage this year? Kellen Moore or the coordinator on the other side of the ball? The defensive coordinator has the advantage going into the game against the Eagles because you know why? He's going to know that Jalen is not quite sure because it's a new environment that he's in with Kellen Moore. But
I'm not buying that. Look, I get it. Continuity.
Are you telling me Steve Spagnuolo doesn't have the advantage over an Eagle offense right now because you've got a new center?
I didn't say that. I said that I'm not going to sit here and make an excuse for every single week of the season because Jalen Hurts is learning a new offense. I know it sucks. I know it's not as good as having the same coordinator, but are you just going to throw the season away because I got to learn a new offense?
No, my point has been, if people think this is going to be an easy ride out of the gate, they're fucking nuts. This is not a 3-week fix.
I've told you.
This is something that's going to take 10 weeks to work. By the way, they're so talented on offense. Like I said, are they going to win games in spite of some of the deficiencies that you're going to see? They did last year. They'll do it again this coming season. But to be the Super Bowl team that they want to be, Xander, you've got to look like Kansas City did. It's got to go like this. Bumpy, bumpy, bumpy. All of a sudden, you're going like this. Holy shit, by the end of the year, Kansas City was looking unbeatable. You're like, where the fuck did these young guys come from?
Well, that's always what matters more. This is why I've said consistently.
We went like this.
I know, but I don't care as much about the first 8 weeks. You got to weather the storm. You have to be a winning football team in a way because you got to set yourself up to make the playoffs. But I want to hit our stride in November and December going into the playoffs in January.
Will that organization have that patience, though, coming off of last year in the 1-6?
Well, I think they have to based on the decisions they made last year. By the way, Victor, I mean, it didn't take 10 weeks and 22. Well, they had the same coordinator. The point is that we have a new coordinator, Victor. That's what we're talking about. I mean, if they had the same coordinator, then this point would be mute. It wouldn't matter. It wouldn't be the conversation. We have a new coordinator. How long is it going to take for it to work? That's the question. Yeah, I think it's fair point by you, but look, what are we going to do? I mean,
no,
I'm okay with it. Like I said, I want to be playing our best football in December. We beat the Chiefs last year. We did. Who had the trophy at the end of the year?
KC.
and who had the last laugh? Kansas City. You can figure it out. I'm not that worried if we start off a little bit slow, but you're right. I mean, expectations are high coming into the year. You have players, you have fans, you have, people out there talking like even me. I mean, I had them at 13-4 coming, when we did our win-loss. 13-4 is a hell of a season. So those expectations, you're right, will be loud in the beginning of the year. But these guys are professionals. They're going to have to weather the storm. And if the Eagles are going to not have the patience, then shame on them. They should have moved on from Nick Sirianni last year if they had those type of concerns.
I think that's the one thing that, what you just said right there, Xander, I think keeps Nick Sirianni through the year. I agree with you because you know why? Shame on them if they blow him out midseason because you know why? Then they're going to realize that they didn't do the right thing in the offseason by letting him go. You've got to ride this fucker to the very end here. And maybe that's the greatest thing that we have in this process because, look, I don't want you firing him either. I want you to give Jalen as much time. I want him to have a mulligan.
Here's the funny thing about Nick Sirianni this year. If the offense sucks in the first 5 weeks,
they're going to be howling at him.
But who's going to get the real blame?
Howie.
Howie? You think Howie's going to? Why would Howie get the blame?
Because they kept him.
Kept Nick. Okay, that's fair. I thought you were talking about personnel. I'm like, Howie wouldn't get the blame.
But
that's my point. Nick has gotten rid of all of his, this is my offense. This is now Kellen Moore's offense. So if the defense sucks.
By the design of the front office. What they basically
sucks, everybody's pointing at Vic Fangio. If the offense sucks, everybody's pointing at Kellen Moore. Now,
which is great for Nick.
That's what I'm saying. So in a way, it's already built that he will be able to go through the season. Now, if you get to the end of the year and you stink out loud all year and you don't win a playoff game, yeah, Nick's going to get fired. But if you're 6 weeks in and your offense isn't humming, Nick's going to be up there at the podium saying, give Kellen a chance, give our guys a chance. We're getting there. We're figuring it out. All those things. The flowers, we planted the flowers. All those things. Those analogies come back into play.
All right, let me do this. So you believe that Kellen Moore will have a better offense of 8th ranked and also score 26 points a game.
Is that what our average is? That what we were last year?
Yeah.
Well, he has to. Now here's the funny part.
That's quite a number.
I know. 8th ranked offense. You should be happy with the 8th ranked offense in the NFL.
You win Super Bowls with the 8th ranked offense.
Said, look, the pressure on Kellen Moore is not being talked about enough. I mean, there's the expectation for him is top 5 or bust, basically. And that's a tough thing to do, especially the first year in an offense, the first year with a new quarterback. Now, he's got a lot of weapons. So, I think he can do it. But I'd be interested to sparse out some of those stats and see, okay, what were we ranked in the first 12 weeks? And then what were we ranked in that 1-6 stretch? Like, were we number 3 and then we were 28 and it brought our average down to 8? That's what I'd be interested to see. You got to be better than whatever we were in that 1-6 stretch. Overall, we were 8th, but that's also starting with a hot, we started out hot last year. We think we were 10-1 or 11-1 or 10-2, something in that range, 10-2, right? So, yeah, I mean, we're going to see. The expectations are big, though, coming into the year, and the pressure's on for Kellen Moore, absolutely. I think the pressure is bigger on Jalen Hurts, though. I mean, it's
but
time.
How about this, though? I mean, Kellen Moore could always go back to going like this. Okay, well, I've had the number one offense in National Football League twice in 4 years. I mean, I know what that looks like. And
Bro,
so he's done that.
Bro, it's going to look bad on Kellen Moore if he can't figure out how to make it work with Jalen
No,
Hurts,
if he's third year fired.
Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, top 5 O-line. It's not going to look good for him. In a way, this is boom or bust. Your career is going to look like shit if you can't figure it out with this offense. But if you make it work, you might become a head coach next year.
Let me ask you another one.
The hamster wheel, by the way.
Let's slide over to the other side of the ball here for a second. I heard you guys talking about Jalen Carter. You think he's the key to this entire defense this coming season?
That's what Vic's building it on. I mean, he's building it on that defensive front. So if they can't create the pressure or create, sacks and run stopping is a part of it, but this team love the big stuff. They love the passing plays. They love, minimizing the big plays on defense and all those things. Run defense is big, but they haven't quite put an emphasis on that like they have rushing the passer. So we're going to see. I mean, listen, I might be higher on Jalen Carter than any other player on this football team. I think he is going to be a Hall of Fame player if he lives up to the talent that he has. He's probably the best player that we've drafted raw talent-wise in the last 10 years. And maybe more, maybe longer. He's that talented, and I think this is his league at this point. Aaron Donald's gone, like Fletcher Cox is gone. This is your league, man. I mean, John read off the PFF ranking, for him last year. He was like, whatever, say what you want about PFF. They're generally in the ballpark, though, He was 6th rated. He had like Quinnen Williams, Dexter Lawrence, Chris Jones, and the dude in Oakland or Vegas now, not Oakland, Vegas, were the only guys in front of him. I'm like, Jalen Carter, I mean, that's pretty unbelievable company for a guy that's 22 coming into the NFL. Now, you talk about the late in the year, the bit of a collapse for him, but I'm not really putting that all on him. I mean, we switched defensive coordinators weirdly. Don't know why we did that.
It's Patricia.
It was Patricia. It was the whole team collapse. Nobody looked good in that last 6 games. So I'm not going to hold Jalen Carter to a different standard than the rest of the team is held to. The whole team sucked at the end of the year. Jalen was that guy too. Now, I think this year, though, I think he has a big year this year. John said double-digit sacks. I don't know about that yet. I mean, that's tough for an
double-digit sacks. He's a first-team All-Pro from inside if he does.
Right, that's tough though on an inside to get double-digit sacks. So, Jonathan Allen was ranked behind him, Kyle. I think Jonathan Allen was like 8 or 9. I'd have to double-check exactly what he was, but he was a little bit behind Jalen Carter.
What I would do if I'm Green Bay in that game, I'm going to run right at him with Josh Jacobs. I'm going to wear that guy out as much as I can, and I want to see if people around him. I'm going to double team him because he's the only guy in that front I'm concerned about. You have no one on that
but look,
defense.
I know you're not the biggest Jordan Davis guy, but if you're going to double team Jalen Carter and you're going to let an interior lineman go one-on-one with Jordan Davis, he is going to throw them around like a rag doll.
I have seen no impact from him so far in 3 years.
That's because every time he plays, he plays the nose, he plays the shade technique, and he's taking up 2 blockers. My point is, if you're going to double Carter, which I agree they're probably going to end up doing, Jordan Davis is going to manhandle 90% of centers in the league.
Okay. You're right. And guess what? You okay? 13th pick? Hey, fucking welcome to the league. Okay.
I agree with that. I never said you were wrong about that.
I'm just waiting for 2 years for that. Okay.
Also, if they double Jalen Carter, it's going to open up more lanes for Bryce Huff. It's going to open up more for Milton Williams. It's going to open up more for all the other guys. Look, I think you're right. I think they
I don't
probably
fear
will double
them
Jalen.
dudes. I fear Carter, and that's it. Those other guys are going to have to prove to me that they can make impactful plays.
I'm not even trying to hype up Jordan Davis. All I'm telling you is that man at his size, his strength, and his speed, Jason Kelce wouldn't have been able to stop Jordan Davis. It was like when Vita Vea went one-on-one with Kelce. He bulldozed them. These are different sized human beings. It's like a welterweight fighting a heavyweight. It doesn't work. Jordan Davis will plow these dudes.
What I will tell you is what I saw from Jordan Davis last year was this. The potential is high, but as the season gets going on, it completely starts to go south from week one. And it did. He was so good. He wasn't, dude. Brian Boldinger said he didn't belong in a uniform at the end of the year.
Yeah, but that's
he was on the NFL Network saying that. You were giving up 145 yards rushing in the last 6 weeks.
You could say that about 18 of the 22 starters on the Eagles last year. You can't single out a guy like Jordan Davis in that and say that.
You think he had any impact at all in the second half of the season?
Pick me one guy that did.
We're talking about Jordan Davis, the 13th pick in the draft. Not
my
some free
point
agent
is
linebacker.
The entire team collapsed. You can't just point your finger at Jordan.
He's the 13th pick. Okay. I'm not talking about a free agent linebacker.
I know you're not. I'm saying every person on the team that was a starting player, and when we went 1-6, was of minor impact. None of them played big, maybe except Devontae Smith and Landon Dickerson. Those are the only two guys who I think didn't drop off. Even Lane Johnson gave up a few sacks. I mean, it was everybody played like shit. But here's my one gripe with you on Jordan Davis. You were a defensive tackle. Like, you should know that the expectation of a fan for him at the 13th pick is going to be swayed in terms of sacks, but that's not his position. You should know that. He's a nose. He takes up two blockers. He plays the shade technique. He's never going to be the stat pack guy.
Right.
So for anybody that's waiting for the sacks and waiting for all those things, you're going to be waiting for his entire career.
And that's why I said they overdrafted him.
Okay, well, that's a fair take. But now that he's in the defense, he hasn't really been bad, brother. He hasn't. He hasn't been great, but he hasn't been a bad player.
He has not lived up to that 13th pick. Do you agree or yes or no?
At this point, I would agree with that.
Would you give him a contract extension next year?
Now, here's the context I would add. Do I think he's lived up to the 13th pick? No, but the reason I say that isn't as much about the player as it is about the position. They decided to take a nose tackle at 13. I don't know if that was a great decision. I think the player is capable of having a great impact. It's not going to be 13th pick level because that's not the type of impact nose tackles have. So it's kind of a skewed thing where, yeah, I don't think he's lived up to the 13th pick, but it's more of a knock on the Eagles than it is on the player. You took a nose tackle at 13. Obviously, the expectations were going to be out of whack.
I would totally come to center with you a little bit, but here, again, I don't want to ever have a conversation again about a football player taking 13th that's supposed to be an impact player when he can't stay out of White Castle. I don't want to hear that shit any longer about being out of shape.
I hear you. Look,
that's not you're a big guy with no excuses, right? That's no fucking excuse to be out of shape.
This is where I will not fight you on this because you're an NFL player. You're an NFL defensive lineman. You're supposed to be one of the strongest men on the field. He's gifted as gifted gets, athletically. Come on, man, get your body right. Now, last year is when I really started to get pissed at that. First year, I understand it where you play 11, 12 games in college.
And you're
young. On the Georgia Bulldogs where you're rotating like crazy because you got so many damn good players. So I'll give you that 1 year to get your body up. Last year was not great. But here's the other context. The team sucked. So, yeah, Jalen wasn't or Jordan wasn't fully in shape, but, the first 11 games, he was a pretty good player last year. Go watch the tape. It was not bad. It was not bad. Now, did he fell off? Yes, but the entire Eagles fell off.
Okay, here's where I'll say this to you. How can the oldest guy on the fucking D-line be the best player on the D-line because he knows exactly what he's being asked to do. He's a 34-year-old defensive tackle in Fletcher Cox. And I'll tell you what, that guy put in 6 sacks, 6.5 sacks, whatever it was. And I got to tell you, Xander, I'm going to ask this question to you too. Do you think that Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter are going to take the leadership role that Fletcher Cox? Because, hey, we're not just talking about replacing a player of that caliber. He's a Hall of Fame door knocker. He's right there. Plus, I think his impact on that side of the ball with them 2 young ball players last year had the same impact as Landon Dickerson, Tyler Steen, Cam Jurgens that Kelsey had on the other side of the ball. I think that's more underrated than what people think Fletcher Cox's influence on them 2 young boys over on that side of the ball.
That I agree with you.
Do you think those 2 young men are ready to take that baton from Fletcher and take that and carry that defense? Because that defense needs leadership. Darius Slay's not my leader. They've got to have somebody. Fletcher Cox was the leader and Brandon Graham. Brandon Graham can't lead playing 14% of the plays.
Yeah, the problem with that is, I think the players will eventually take it, and it will be to me, there are more players that are, lead by example. If Jalen Carter is just wrecking games, that's leadership in a way. It's a different kind of leadership, but it would be his kind of leadership, I would say. And it's tough to do that when you don't have the career Fletcher Cox has, right? Like when you're Fletcher Cox and you've been doing it for 14 years and you got a Super Bowl and you've been an All-Pro and you're, potentially a Hall of Fame defensive tackle, you command the room naturally. They need a little bit more time. I mean, Jalen Carter can say it, but it's in a way, it's like still show me, and it's not his fault. He just doesn't have the reps.
They have to build the equity up.
They got to build the equity up, and that takes time. That takes reps. That takes games. That takes all that stuff. And
it takes sacks. I'll tell you what, Jalen Carter gets out of the gate. He's got 4 or 5 sacks in the first 3 games. People are going to be going like this. There's our guy. Because let me tell you, when that's how Aaron Donald grabbed the room. Aaron Donald grabbed the room because Aaron Donald. Now, again, I'm comparing him to Aaron Donald because I think he could be like that.
I do too.
I think he has that kind of potential, but he's bigger. Do you understand Aaron Donald's 6 feet, 270? This guy is 6'5", 320 pounds.
And just a beast.
And his feet and handwork are so good. It does remind me of Jerome. He looks so much like him when he plays inside. I'm telling you, I am looking for, of all the players on that football team, there are 2 players I'm looking forward to this year watching. That is Jordan Mailata, and that is Jalen Carter. And I got to tell you something, Xander. When you can build your football team around players like Jalen Carter and Jordan Mailata, and you're that young, and they're on each on different sides of the ball, you got a future. That's how you build championship teams. When you got stars like that. I mean, it's very seldom do you have 2 young guys that have that kind of talent. Mailata's the 3rd best left tackle in the league. Carter has a chance to be the best defensive tackle in the league this year. That's uncommon, but that's been a benchmark of your organization. Do you know, before I even went on JAKIB, I said this about 4 years ago. I may even said it when you guys won the Super Bowl. I said this. I have never seen a football organization have the best O-line and D-line, and you guys had guys hurt in your O-line that year for the Super Bowl. I've never seen a Patriots team beat up like that on both sides of the ball with D-line and O-line, the combination you guys had. And it's carried up to this day that you guys do that. It's truly a wonderful benchmark that they have at that organization. And one of the things that I love the most about the Eagles is that the priorities on both sides of the ball like that.
Yeah, well, that's a credit to Howie Roseman. It really is. I mean, look, he's been doing that for a long time. He prioritizes the position. There are moments when people say you shouldn't have drafted the guy in first round, and he does. He doesn't care. He prioritizes the lines on both sides of the ball. I mean, he went back-to-back defensive tackle 2 years in a row in the first. Most other GMs wouldn't do that. But Howie, he prioritizes the lines, and to your credit, or to his credit, it's worked out in their favor. They've picked up some really good players. And they're well positioned for life after, their Hall of Fame guys have hung them up, Jason Kelsey, Fletcher Cox. But, back to your Fletcher Cox point, yeah, you're right. It's time. The young men got to grow up because they got no other choice. The veteran has retired. He's moved on. He's hunting. He's doing all the things he's wanted to do in life. He's made his money. He's done what he wanted to do. He won a Super Bowl. He's accomplished. Now it's your turn. And they have to step up this year. And I'm not saying they won't. Let's see him do it. But you're right. For sure. They got to do it. No doubt about it.
Two last ones here. And I kind of buried the lead a little bit here with this. Are we underestimating the importance on the sidelines of both Fletcher and Jason Kelsey on that miss? I mean, it's not just a gift of the talent, but it's also when you see Leroy Selman, or you see Ed Too Tall Jones, or you see somebody that who's been through everything, and you're a young player, you gravitate to those guys. And every word they say, there's no coincidence that every time Jason Kelsey walks down the street, fans are even attracted to him because he has that presence. Fletcher has that presence. Are we underestimating how important that's going to be to keep an eye on this year, especially with a nuclear meltdown that they had a year ago, that dynamic is not going to be in that room this year?
From a leadership perspective?
Yep. Not from just talent, but from leadership. Where are you getting that from?
Yeah, I mean, here, let me ask you this, because I brought this up a little bit on this morning's show, and, I thought John's response was pretty good, but he was kind of like, this is overblown. The whole leadership thing, like, these are professionals. These are grown men, and, you need some level of leadership in the room, but, like, to sit here and say that the loss of leadership is bigger than the loss of talent is asinine. And that was his take, and I can understand that perspective, but yeah, I think it does matter. I think it does matter when you talk about, the collapses that we saw last year. But
let me ask you. Let me put it to you this way. Let me go here.
If you play great football, does the rest of stuff fall in the line?
You see what
I'm saying though? Like, if you suck out loud, it's going to be tough to be a leader. If you're great, it's all going to fall into place. It's like the Jalen Hurts conversation. He was stoic and quiet and nothing. When they were winning, nobody gave a shit. He was the greatest leader Philly's ever had. When they go 1-6 down the stretch and he does the same thing, now he sucks. It's kind of the same thing.
Okay, to John's point then. Say you're going through a 4-game losing streak. You got Patrick Mahomes over here, and you got Jalen Hurts over here. And you're in the locker room. Who do you believe is going to pull you out of that?
Is that a fair question?
Yeah. You're asking me about leadership. You're asking me that could apply if Aaron Donald's in the building, and I've got Aaron Donald.
Here's the difference with that.
Wait, I got Aaron Donald and I got Jordan Davis, and we got a 4-game losing streak. And I look over at Aaron Donald, and he goes, "We'll be all right. Everything's gonna be fine." Let me ask you this: you gonna be all right with Aaron Donald talking to you, or how are you gonna look over at Jordan Davis? You think that matters with young players? Especially new players, new coordinators, nobody really knowing their role. Hey, with veteran leadership, John's right. When you have the 22 defense and Adama Sue, Linville Joseph, and you got Fletcher Cox and all them veteran guys in the building, they don't need that shit. But when you have a bunch of new guys, the entire secondary is brand new. The entire secondary, the linebackers are all new. You don't think a guy's calming voice in the building who has had equity in the league on being successful sits there and you look over at Aaron Donald and goes, "Hey, we got a 3-game losing streak. Don't worry. Been through this. We're good." Versus a guy who's never been through it.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, look, it's definitely fair, but I don't think it's the number one thing.
It's not, but it matters.
It matters. It does matter. We haven't seen them have the opportunity to do it yet, so I'm going to give them the leeway to at least have the chance to do it. Last year was troublesome down the stretch. It really was, but I think it was more created by, lack of play than it was by lack of pregame speeches, if that makes sense. Like it does matter, but I'm just saying I think when you focus on your play on the field, that will have the ripple effect and that will be able to, right the course in a way. We're going to see. I think these young guys are pretty good, pretty well positioned. You're right, though. There's no real clear leader on defense like there was last year. I don't know who it is. Is it Darius Slay? I guess it has to default to him.
Probably so.
And it's not a great one. I mean, look, I like Darius Slay. I'm a fan. I think he's a good player. I think he's, well past his prime at this point, and I don't really view him as a guy that, you build your leadership on the side of a football. But look, it's going to have to be him. It's going to have to be earned through play. And that that better. Eagles fan says Brandon Graham. Yeah, but Dan's right. I mean, you're playing 14% of the snaps. It's tough to lead. Now, maybe
he's built enough equity
where he can make up for some of that.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Fly Park says Devin White. We'll see Fly on that. I don't know about him, but we'll see. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it matters. It definitely matters, and we're going to see how they handle it coming into this year.
Senor, you're right. I promise you, I will never compare Jalen Hurts to Patrick Mahomes again because that's absurd. From now on, I'll compare him to Zach Wilson. All right, I got one last one here.
Come on, that's unfair too. Zach Wilson's done shit in the league. Jalen Hurts is an NFC champion.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, I'm trying to compare him to the best in the league because I want to be compared to the best.
Okay, so compare him to people in his ballpark.
So we're not going to. You don't ever want to be compared to the best that's in the league.
I'm not saying to not.
I'm not disputing
comparing him to Mahomes.
When they compare LeBron,
you said compare him to Zach Wilson.
Wait a minute. Because Senor goes, don't compare him to Mahomes.
All right, so you're going to go to
wait a minute here.
Wait,
you're right. I'm going to not compare LeBron James to Michael Jordan anymore. I'm going to compare him to Karl Malone.
Oh, bullshit. You know exactly what I'm saying. You went from Patrick Mahomes to the other side of the room and went to Zach Wilson.
No. The guy said
the guy is stunk out loud. How about Jared Goff, Brock Purdy, other guys that have been.
I don't want to compare Jalen to Brock Purdy or Jared Goff. I want the best.
That's where he is. That's where he is. That's where he is in the league.
Do you think Jared Goff is special?
No, but I think Jared Goff has what it takes to get the job done.
One last one for you. How about Vic Fangio coming out saying that we wanted more practice time and there's going to be more critical days of practicing that they're going to have during training camp. And Nick said that there's going to be more specialized days that because Vic wanted to be able to install more stuff and that they're going to have more scenarios where they're going to have longer practices.
Yeah, we'll
Vic,
see.
Hey, I love that.
We'll see, though. I mean, look, Vic Fangio is coming.
Oh, you don't believe it? You think it's talk?
Well, no. I mean, I'm just saying. All I've heard all offseason is Vic Fangio is going to play the guys he wants. Vic Fangio is going to do what? This is the Philadelphia Eagles, everybody. This is Howie's team, and this is Jeffrey's team. Nobody can come in and dictate their terms with no boundaries. That's all I'm saying. We'll see. Let's see how much Vic is talk and how much leniency he actually has. It's like the conversation with the cornerback we were talking about this morning. John's like, Vic's going to play the best guy. I'm like, you better believe if Howie Roseman wants Quinyon Mitchell on the field over Isaiah Rodgers, he's going to get his way. I don't give a fuck what Vic Fangio has to say.
Same with Nakobe Dean.
Right. I think Vic will. I think to his point, I'm not saying that's not Vic Fangio's style. I do think that's how he defaults. That's how he thinks. But how much will he be able to do that here in Philly? I don't know. And by the way, I don't think Vic Fangio knows yet how much he might have.
No, let's wait till when the bullets are real.
That's what I'm saying. Vic Fangio might be out there talking, oh, I'm going to do this and this and that. And all of a sudden game week's going to come. He's going to be like, who the fuck you got started?
No. You know what's going to happen?
Not starting. Nakobe Dean's your middle linebacker. Quinyon Mitchell's your starting cornerback. Enough said. I'll see you on Monday.
Yeah. No. Hey, you're going to hear, how when you were in high school, you would hear this. Dan Sileo, could you please come to Sister Judith O'Connor's office? We would like to have a conversation with you.
You were that guy too. You and me both. They renamed the principal's office after me in grade school.
Sister Judith and Sister Marjorie Fish would love to see you. Can you please come after your study hall? And I'm sitting there going, and you hear everybody into my room go, ooh.
It's true, man. So look, we're going to see on Vic Fangio. I like it. I'm happy that we have somebody that wants to do it their way and wants to get back to tradition. All I'm saying is this is the Eagles. Don't forget that. They are run by the people that run them, and they don't like anybody else telling them how to do their business. That's why Doug Peterson got fired, for fuck's sake. The guy won a Super Bowl and was canned because he wanted a coordinator. You think Vic Fangio is going to come in and We have Vic Fangio. Now he's going to be able to call any shot he wants.
That was one of the priorities why he took the job, though, that he got autonomy to say what he wanted.
No, I don't. I think he likes the area. His family's in the area. He grew up in the area. He's on the back end of his coaching
So
career.
you're telling me because he likes cheesesteaks, he moved here? Come on, dog.
No, I'm not telling you that. But what I'm definitely telling you is he didn't take this job because he was going to be the least muzzled in Philly. That ain't happening. I ain't buying that for 1 second. Come on, Big Sil. I don't even think you're buying that.
I'm not.
I get calls about what we're talking about on YouTube from this front office. You don't think they're going to have some sort of say in what Vic Fangio's doing with the main part of their operation? Come on.
Xander, great stuff. Hey, by the way, I'm going to have a guy on who won 3 Super Bowls as a defensive coordinator and also a guy who worked with Vic Fangio and Dave Wanstead. So I'll tell you what, I'll ask him what to expect. Well, I'll ask him, do you think this guy's going to play the best people? And if he says yes.
Yeah, no, but that's not what I said. Because I think he's going to play the best people too. I just think he's going to play the best people.
So there's a conflict.
Until big bad Howie Roseman walks in and says, hey, Vic, I don't really care what you want to do. This is what we're doing. I'll see you on Tuesday or whatever he tells him.
I can't wait for August 31st when the Gators play that guy's stupid school. I just can't wait.
Who are they playing?
They play the Gators, play the Canes.
Oh, opening week? Is that what the
opening week in Gainesville?
I don't even, man, I haven't followed. I've been so busy, man.
Dude, that thing's right around the corner, August 31st.
I've been so busy.
It's one of the very first weeks.
Get JAKIB where I want it to be.
Hey, by the way, I got Alabama ranked 5th.
Yeah, I thought you were a little generous to them.
Come on, dog.
I don't know. It's
maybe
like
2 years from now I might drop them, but that's still Nick's dudes in the room.
Hey, look, all I'm saying is you know, I got on this show today and you tried to tell me how much it mattered that we lost Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelsey, and I agree with you. We lost Nick Saban in Alabama. Okay. Nobody's a bigger Bama fan than I am. I went to the school. I paid the tuition.
You're not number one.
I'm just saying. Let me see with the Kalen DeBoer guy. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
You're not liking the Washington Husky guy.
I'm not saying I don't like him. I'm just saying I'm not ready to get excited.
Never heard of the fucking guy. I have no idea who he is.
Exactly. Like we lost Nick Saban, the greatest college football coach probably of all time. Yeah, let me see how it plays out first. I'll say that.
All right, dog. Great stuff, man. Make sure you catch Xander in the morning. Birds 365. By the way, this segment has absolutely improved so much since the training wheels were taken off after week 1 with this dude. He's now kicking ass. By the way, your topic tree is doing well. You do a great job there. I implore you to watch the show. He's even got John dropping F-bombs now, which is insane because when Jody was there, I heard no F-bombs. I'm hearing John McMullen going, fuck that. I'm going, wait, what?
I love it. Johnny Mac's been killing it as well on the show. Brings a great insight. Chips and birds. Roll Tide, brother. Thank you, Big Sills.
You got it. Hit the like button, Xander. Thank you so much, my friend. Hit that like button. Dave wants that right around the corner. Keep it here, National Football Show.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wildwood day.
Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your greenhouse? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Big Sales National Football Show. Please hit the like button. Thank you guys so much. Dave Wannstedt, part of the Chicago Bears broadcast team, the winner of 3 Super Bowls with the Dallas Cowboys, and former head coach of the Dolphins and the Chicago Bears. My former defensive coordinator will join us here in a couple minutes. He actually knows Vic Fangio very well. We will talk with him. We'll get his insight on what to expect this year from Vic Fangio. I got to tell you something. There's no question. Today's NFL, I don't know how important it is to really have an elite defensive football team, especially with today's rules. It's not like it was years ago. I want to show you this before I get Coach Wannstedt up. You guys see what this is? This is the very first training camp that Dave Wannstedt was at and we were all at. And when we left Valley Ranch and we went to Thousand Oaks, this was the very first one. We all reported out there. And I'll never forget all those guys out there saying what to expect. You know what I said? Nobody's safe. And they went, what do you mean? I go, these guys don't give a shit about anything but winning. It's just winning. I mean, every one of these guys are going to come in here. They're not going to care who you are, how many years you have, what your last name is, where you played. None of that matters. They're great coaches. Just remember, produce. And they produced. They won a national title. They were all together, some of them at Oklahoma State, University of Miami. Of course, the success with Dallas. Coach Wannstedt's one of the last coaches ever to put the Dolphins into the postseason. Do you know that? Won 54 ball games down there with the Dolphins after Jimmy. Bears, he was the head football coach. Works with the broadcast team now up in Chicago. Has 2 Super Bowl rings. Dave's a former player himself at Pitt and also a national championship player at Pitt. What to expect from Vic Fangio? Let's get our friend on, and one of my closest friends and a guy that I just absolutely love, him and Butch. I talk to Butch all the time. Of course, Jimmy Johnson. And I got to say this right out of the gate before we do anything. Today is Jimmy Johnson's birthday, folks. And I reminded myself never to ever do 2 things. Don't ever say anything about Santa. Don't ever send him a Christmas card. And don't ever wish him a happy birthday. So today, Coach, I wished him a happy Heineken Day. That's the only thing I could think of because I know what he thinks of happy birthdays. So I couldn't do it. So I just said, okay, Coach, here, happy Heineken Day.
Well, you know what? He was having a Heineken, Dan. So you were right on point there. And don't call him after 8 o'clock at night either. So that one, you can add that to your list too. But
I would say this to you, Coach. I don't know who you had more of a problem with, Switzer, Buddy Ryan, or Santa. So
Yeah.
I always put that in there. Coach, I mean, when you see this letter here, what were your expectations when you went in as a defensive coordinator on a football team that was so old, had an old way of thinking? You had to change the culture and mentality of how they had done things for 29 years. How did you guys in 3 years turn that around into being a Super Bowl environment?
Well, number one, I think you mentioned it, Dan, early on. You know, we had a group of coaches that had been together for several years. Jimmy and I started as assistant coaches together, actually back in Pittsburgh. Tony Wise also. So there was, and then the years at Oklahoma State together, where Butch Davis joined us. And then Miami, where Dave Campo joined us, and then Hubbard Alexander and Joe Brodsky. So Jimmy did it a little bit different when he got the Cowboy job. He surrounded himself with a staff that we had been together. We had been together for, you know, championships. We've had our butts kicked together. So there was no there was no uncertainty of how we were going to react.
Coach, was it more about loyalty, that he wanted to have loyalty around him? Look, there's one thing, you have to have talent around you, and your guys' resumes speak to the success that you had at all levels. But to me, it just looks like a little bit of loyalty, because here, I'm not going to name the name, but there was an offensive coach that he made a poor decision on when it came to being one of the head guys on the offensive side. And I think he regretted that because it kind of got pushed on him. And he made that decision to get rid of that guy the following year. And I'm not going to name his name because I don't want to go down that road. But, I mean,
right.
Do you agree that it was loyalty?
Loyalty to maybe, you know, there was two sides of it. Obviously, loyalty to Jimmy, but I think, you know, he knew, and we all knew, that it was going to be some tough times. We didn't realize as tough as it was initially, but I think there was loyalty to the cause and loyalty to the purpose and the loyalty to the way we were going to do things. And in the NFL, you have to be consistent. On any level, you have to be consistent. And it can't be a 1 week good, 1 week bad, or you're never going to get to the playoffs and get to a Super Bowl. So I think Jimmy knew that we had systems on offense, systems on defense that we knew would work. And now it was a matter of getting players to fit those systems and coaching them up and relating to them and everything that went along with that. So, yes, loyalty to people, but also loyalty to the way we were going to do things and not have any cracks in the armor, as we used to say. And early on, I guarantee you, there have been some staffs that would have folded up early when we were at Dallas, and we didn't. I mean, we did our deal, and we just kept, you know, Danny, you were there. I mean, you know, I was talking to Tony Wise yesterday. We were talking about training camp because I was texting with Matt Eberflus yesterday, the coach of the Bears. And I said, hey, Matt, I want to come up and watch a practice before you go to Canton. They're playing in the Hall of Fame game. They play this year. We all know that. And he texted me the practice days. I think there were 9 days. And then I said, how about the ones when you're in pads? He sent me like 6 days. And I was laughing. I was telling Tony Wise about that, how we went to our first training camp, and we went 5 weeks. Tony said he was having his mail delivered to California so he could pay his bills. So I mean, it was like moving. And it was, we had 5 weeks in our first training camp, as you know. You were there. And it was, times are different. We get that. But I was kind of laughing to myself because it is time for training camp now.
Hey, I just remember this, walking out there on Cal Lutheran and Jimmy looking at me going, we're not staying here again. He goes, it's like a country club out here. Not a chance. I need a little more heat than this. He's like,
and you know what? It got us. That was the biggest thing. We finished camp out there, and we broke camp and went back to Dallas.
Yep.
And the first game that we played, who the heck did we play? Maybe the Giants.
Was it the Eagles?
Eagles, maybe it didn't. Whoever it was, 3/4 of the way through the game, that we were dying. They were in better shape we were because we were not used to the heat. And that really was the icing on the cake when Jimmy said, this is enough. This is insane. This makes no sense. So that was the end of that. Then was off to Texas.
Absolutely. Coach, let me ask you something, because everybody's anticipation and wanting to see and wanting to know what Vic Fangio is going to bring to the table as a defensive coordinator for the Eagles. And I'll tell you one thing that the influencing of Vic has already done. There's going to be more extended practice time. It seems that the Eagles are going to, because he demanded that he needs a little more time to do some installations on what he wants to bring. Give me an overall sense of Vic Fangio and what you think he brings as a coordinator to the Eagles.
Yeah, I've known Vic a long time. And when he was at the Bears, him and I had long talks. I went up there and watched him practice. And I'll tell you, the number one thing that jumps at him, and very similar to what our philosophy was, Dan, Vic Fangio's defense do not give up a lot of big plays. They do not give up a lot of big plays.
Control and contain, coach, like that?
Control, contain, sound coverages. I would say they are on the not overthink it end of the defense, but let's play faster and harder and sounder than the opponent. Vic likes to going back to his San Francisco days, he was with Harbaugh, that if he had a choice, he would rush 4 and multiple coverages, cover 2, cover 8, cover, whatever, 3, change it up that way. But I'll tell you what, over the last few years, if he needs to bring pressure, he will bring pressure. It's not going to be a lot of all-out blitz now, Eagle fans, but he'll bring 5 guys, 6 guys if he has to, more so in the red zone, but very sound. I mean, his philosophy works. It's proven that it works. And, it's going to be a matter of the players just buying in. And Vic doesn't have the personality to, it's got to be chummy with the players and all that stuff. But the players are going to get results. And if they want to have a chance to make a run at this thing and get back to the big dance, they're going to buy in quick because they know he knows what he's talking about. And they know that he's going to give them a chance to be successful.
How does he get pressure, coach? Does he use stunts? Is he like a big T stunt kind of guy? Is he a blitz guy?
He will. He'll do multiple things out of, like I say, 4-man rush would be his number one thing. But then, watching his tapes, I mean, he'll bring 5 when you least expect it, or he'll jump into a 3-man rush when you least expect it. So they're going to be multiple, but 75% of their defense is going to be, unless he changes now, has been rush 4, multiple coverages, make the quarterback make a mistake when he's got steady pressure.
Coach, would you agree that his forte is linebackers, or do you think it's secondary? Because today, I don't know if there's really a great collection of linebackers in the league, and I think that's one of the reasons that the tight end is more proficient today in the NFL because of the mismatches, and most of your talented guys are on the numbers at corner. What's more important in a Vic Fangio defense? Is it the secondary play? Is it the linebacker play? Are you just looking for good play out of LBs? Because the Eagles don't have a lot of talent, I think, at linebacker, but they've got a lot of young potential at the cornerback and some at the safety position.
Yeah, Eagles did a great job. I love their first 2 picks, the 2 defensive.
Yeah. Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell.
Both those guys are players. I love both those guys. I can just tell you this. I don't know if I could say this is more important or more value, but I would tell you this. The last time the Bears won the division here and they went to the playoffs, their defense was second in the National Football League in takeaways. And the reason that Mitch Trubisky in that offense was halfway successful was because, so many takeaways. I think they had 20-some that, they were giving their offense a short field. They were running that ball back or causing a fumble or getting the interception or sack. And their offense had a lot of nothing's easy, but had a lot of opportunities to score and get points. So, whenever you say takeaways, I mean, you don't know, Dan, what causes takeaways? I don't think you get very many takeaways unless you got pressure. If the quarterback doesn't feel like he's in this league, if he doesn't feel like he's got to get rid of the ball, he's going to hold it. So you got to have pressure. You don't have to get sacks, pressure. And then your secondary. That's what he did a great job of here in Chicago, was the secondary of disguising coverages and making a lot of turnovers, a lot of interceptions, a lot of caused fumbles.
You know, Coach, for you, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, it always seemed that the priority for you on playing defense was, like you just said, if it was Dallas with Haley or us at Miami, you relied on that front four more to really create the pressure. You really, I don't remember, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you brought Winston a couple times, but Winston Moss, maybe you brought him a few times. But to me, I just remember you relying more on the front four to get the pressure because you thought it made for more of a balanced attack on defense if that front four was creating the pressure. And maybe that's kind of what we're saying here with Vic, that he's going to rely on that front four to create that pressure to stabilize the back end of the defense.
100%. I mean, you're right on point, Danny. And we did it. And we would have to force ourselves. And I studied that every week. You know, I always wanted to be about 15 to 20% pressure. And, you know, in the press box, I would be looking at that, and I knew what down and distances I did not pressure, which ones that I was a little bit more. And so I did it more just to kind of self-scout myself, except in the red zone. And that's where you see a lot of it. I know Belichick had the same philosophy in the red zone. I remember talking to him one time, you know, like 1 out of every 3 red zone plays, I would mix in some type of pressure down there, you know, because the ball was coming, just to kind of make the ball come out quicker and not have the quarterback sit back there forever. So, I think Philly philosophy-wise is there's a lot of carryover between them and what we did back in the day, Dan.
Couple questions here for you, Coach. I got this from Dan Morgan, and Dan said that this was some of the evaluation of what Jalen Hurts is, and I want to think and get your take on it, on how you look at him. And this is what Dan said, and a couple of the people. And again, I think Mike Lombardi is also part of this crew. When they went around, they were talking about some of the top 10 quarterbacks. After year 3 turn that garnered a Super Bowl appearance and a $255 million contract, Hurts' play dipped in 23. His quarterback ranking fell from 68.3, which was 4th, to 12th, which was 61. He had 15 interceptions, were so uncharacteristic. It matched the entire total just about for the previous 3 years with 18. A knee injury that he tried to his best manage clearly affected him, according to several evaluators. He was playing Hurts as an NFC executive that I won't name. Eagles tried to downplay that, but he didn't look right. He wasn't the same runner that he was in the past, and passing the ball was pretty tough for him, added an AFC scout. He also he'll always be around the 7 to 12 range when it comes to being one of the top guys in the league, and depending on how productive he is in each of those years. Note, the Eagle offense became stale as a whole, according to some guys that I talked to, and predictable, and the offensive attack also affected Hurts' stock, and that's how he sees him. Is that kind of how you see Jalen right now too?
I do. I was disappointed in Jalen's. The injury is a factor. Okay, so that's one thing. You mentioned that. I was mostly disappointed. Quarterbacks can have bad years, but they can't turn the ball over. And as smart as he is, and the background that he comes from, you know, with the Nick Sabans of the world, as far as protect the ball, the importance of the ball, I that's the one thing that threw me off. The injury, I think, had something to do with his lack of running ability. I think that Nick Sirianni, I think he got exposed a little bit. I think that they changed offensive coordinators, and I don't know, you know, I don't know how
they were 10-2, Coach, when they changed it, and they had beaten Allen, Mahomes, Tua, Stafford, and because they got blown out by the Cowboys and the Niners, they panicked and went to a 2-gap. And get this, Coach, Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis were playing pretty well for young guys. They were in a 3-1 technique, right? Yeah. Well, they told me that they changed, and Clint Hurt told me, as you know who he is, University of Miami, he's a coordinator up in Seattle now. He's the D-line coach in Philly. They went to a 2-gap, and I'm like, 2-gap? with guys that are 3-and-1 techniques, that's impossible to be able to do. You can't go from one extreme to the other.
No.
And so it kind of hurt them. And then they just absolutely fell apart as a unit down the stretch.
Yeah, injuries, and I think the Super Bowl, you hate to say this, but, I classified last year's team, and I want to forget about it as bad as Eagle fans do. It's the second half of the season. I said they look like an old, slow, tired, halfway disinterested football team. And that's not the Philadelphia Eagles that we all know. So I look for them. I love their draft. We talked about it. I look for them to make a big bounce back. I really do.
Coach, how did that's such great insight there, because, I never thought of it, but it's true. How did you guys overcome having gone so deep for those 5 years, as deep as you guys did, knowing that a team like Dallas, over a 3-year span, Coach, if you go deep into the playoffs, a team like the Saints, who don't go to the playoffs or what have you, you could play another full season of ball games in 3 years of postseason play by going deep. How did you guys stay consistent like that? Was it the youth on the team? And was it the fact that you guys believed in over-conditioning the players later in the year, that you thought that kept you fresh?
Well, a little bit of both. You mentioned the youth. We were, if not the youngest.
You were the youngest.
One of the 2 or 3 youngest football teams in the whole league when we won that first Super Bowl. So youth had a lot to do with it, because we were able to stay healthy. And you mentioned the conditioning. We were, we were on the border of being on the simple side of what we did. So now the players come back, they have time off. And it was the same thing at Miami when we lost that first national championship. We came back, we didn't really change much. We had some new players. We went right back to work, and the consistency thing we knew would be there. As long as the attitude was there, and you mentioned conditioning, we knew the consistency would be there, and it has been. So I think that's, that was the thing. And understand what will lose games for you before you start worrying about what you got to do to win it. So I think that this is a big training camp for the Eagles. It's going to be physical, because Vic is nothing but physical on defense. And, with Saquon Barkley, I think that is, God, I look for every Eagle player got to be doing backflips. I mean, Saquon Barkley, I always look at things like this, Danny. When I watch a game, I say, okay, I'm defending this team. What do we got to stop? Who do I got to shut down first? And then we work our way from there. Okay, last year's Eagle team, it was Jalen Hurts. What do we got to do with Jalen Hurts? Not give A.J. Brown the big play and so forth. But this year, when think about it, when Barkley was at the Giants, if you're playing the Giants and they say, what do you got to do this week to win? Got to stop one guy, in my mind. Stop Barkley. If we shut him down, we're going to win this game, probably. Okay? That's not the case now with the Eagles. I mean, you come in here and say, we got to go A.J. Brown, and we got to take
Smith,
tight end,
Barkley.
Smith. Hey, they'll run that ball down your feet. Barkley is motivated. He's going to have a great year. Or it's going to take a lot of the focus off of Jalen Hurts and loosen him up a little bit. So, boy, I think it was a great sign, and I think they're going to get a great year out of him, and I think he's going to be the difference at the end of the year.
Coach, I promise, two last questions. The Chicago team, are you expecting them to make a giant leap this year, especially with all the things that they did in the front office? It looks like there's still a little bit of a problem with the contract. I think it's language from what I'm hearing up in Chicago.
He just signed.
Payouts.
He just signed, Danny.
Okay, good. Okay, so they're going to get him in camp.
Yep.
So they're going to get him ready. I think the rookies show up today for the Bears, by the way.
Correct.
So in your opinion, do they make that leap? Because I could see that NFC North. I mean, you see Green Bay's going to make a leap. Maybe Chicago makes a leap. They did some nice things. TJ Edwards and that linebacking core look pretty decent up there. Could you see them floating around 500?
Absolutely. I think the early number came out at 7.5, and I picked them at 9. I think they can be a 9-win team. But here's the key. You look at their schedule. They don't play a conference game until almost December.
Wow.
Look at their schedule. It might be it's either the end of November or 1st of December when all of their conference games come in. And so they got 2 months of the season where they need to make some noise. And they've got one of the easier schedules early. So they need to get some momentum. They need to get Caleb Williams into a little bit of a routine, a little bit of a confidence spill, and then finish strong. But that division is going to be tough. I mean, Minnesota is not going to, I think J.J. McCarthy is going to be the guy. They got as good a skilled people as anybody in the conference.
Coach, finally here, I want you to help me out on something, and please correct me, because and tell me I'm wrong, or do you agree with this here? When I see Michael Parsons, and he and I go back and forth a lot, because I played in the era of Lawrence Taylor, and maybe I'm jaded because of that. Maybe, and I know it's a different league. Okay, I completely know that. And I asked Butch the other day to give me an evaluation on what he thought of him. And he says it's depending on what they ask him to do. And I go, Butch, he's not real good against the run. You can run at him. He's kind of a finesse player. LT, you couldn't run at. Even if you ran away from him, he got as deep as the ball, coach, and he'd run your ass down from behind when he was in his prime. I mean, I don't see that with him. Now, are they asking him to do too much? Do you think he is in that category? How do you look at him? Like, I look at Myles Garrett and I go, that's not Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett's a Hall of Famer. Like Von Miller is a Hall of Fame player. Coach, is it because he's a Cowboy? Is he that good? Tell me what your take is on it. As an old defensive coordinator here, and you look at him, is he an impact player like a Derek Thomas?
Yes, 100%. He's an impact player. I think the guy's got great instincts. He doesn't make many bad decisions. By bad decisions, I mean when to go over the top of a blocker, when to come behind of a blocker. I've seen him give fantastic effort chasing the ball, so that's a starting point. The pass rush thing, I agree. I'm a little bit old school from the standpoint that, I've had guys that could drop and rush, and I just think the more reps, you don't get many reps in the NFL. So if you put a guy down in a stance, let him get comfortable with right hand, right foot, left foot. Let him get comfortable with that angle he's got to take to get to the quarterback, the depth of the quarterback, all those things. And you're not going to get many reps, and try to let him get as good as he can possibly be. I think they might do a little bit too much with him. To be quite honest with you, I'd love to just see him rushing the passer, from that open side. I think the guy would be as good as anybody in the NFL. I really do. I like him a lot.
So you would rush him more from the strong side than the weak side?
I'd rush him from the back side, from the weak side, from the weak side.
Yeah, but Coach, what they did, like Arizona, they ran at him.
Yeah.
And is it because you think that they wore him down because of some of the things that they did in that Dan? Because you look, Dan Quinn, I actually think Mike Zimmer, in my opinion, I think Mike Zimmer's an upgrade. I mean, you may disagree, and I'm not throwing shade on Dan, but I like Mike Zimmer. I like him. I know he was in Dallas. He may have been there with you a bit, but he was the secondary coach there when Coach Switzer was there, and they won that Super Bowl. So, Coach,
I think Dan Quinn got a little bit, in that game that they lost, the playoff game, he was in dime. San Francisco, Christian McCaffrey was running the ball down their throat, and he was playing not nickel on first and second down. Dan was playing dime with 6 DBs in the game. And, sometimes you can just get ahead of yourself a little bit too much. And I think Zimmer will bring it back in. He'll pull it back in a little bit, maybe not do quite as much, but it'll be interesting to see, how different they truly are.
Coach, I'll leave you with this. I remember we used to always fly out on Christmas Day, and we'd get down there, and you guys, we'd meet in the old team meeting room, and there'd be a bunch of presents all light out. And I remember Butch going to me going, hey, why don't you go wish Coach Johnson happy birthday or Merry Christmas? So I go, Coach, this is really great. All these presents that you lined up for us. So we'd always have to take off, I think, for the Sugar Bowl. Then the Fiesta Bowl, we landed, we got there, and it was Christmas. It was Christmas Day. And we had all these. He goes, I didn't do that. Mike Short thought it was a good idea. I would never do any of this shit. This ain't nothing to do with me. And I'm looking over, and Butch is laughing at me. I go tell Coach happy Merry Christmas. And I'm saying, hey, I'll tell you what, like I said, Santa It's Santa and birthdays. Don't ever call Coach Johnson on those days. And like you said, after 8 o'clock, because it's over.
Over. Done with. Done with.
Coach, I love you. Thank you so much for doing this.
All right, Danny. Good talk to you, buddy. Bye-bye.
You got it. The great Dave Wanstead, the owner of 3 Super Bowl rings and our good friend and part of the broadcast team for the Chicago Bears. Yeah. Hey, today's Jimmy Johnson's birthday. And so, like I said on Twitter, I sent it over. I go, Coach, happy Heineken Day. And he texts me back. He goes, you know better. I said, I didn't wish you happy birthday. I didn't wish you happy birthday. Hey, Yale, guy. Hey, honest to God, we used to show up, Yale, and we would always because, hey, Yale, we were always. Thank you. Hey, we always showed up on Christmas night. I hated taking off, so we know in my grandpa's house we'd have Christmas, and I have to get down to the airport, either LaGuardia or Newark or whatever to get down to Miami. And they pick us up, bring us over to the Green Tree. That's our facility. And when we walked in, Jimmy had all these presents lined up. And you got to take one box. It was all Nike shit, shoes, sweatsuits, shirts, bowl gear, all kinds of shit. And at the end, there was $370. See, we're independent back then. Yale, you'll love this. There was a $375 envelope filled with money because back then you could take the money instead of some of the bowl gifts. But Jimmy said, fuck that. You guys are getting both of them. So he gave us the, I still have like my telephone helmet. It's really an old thing. One of those old school helmets. I think I'll show it to you when we go to timeout. And I go over to Coach. I go, and Butch Davis goes like this. He goes, yeah, go tell Coach happy Merry Christmas. And I go like, Coach, hey man, Merry Christmas to you. And it's great that he goes, Merry Christmas. What do you mean Merry Christmas? He goes, fuck Santa. Hate that guy. And I'm like, what? And I can hear Butch Davis and all the coaches laughing. He goes, hate that fucking guy. It's a gimmick. Don't ever wish me happy birthday either. That's a gimmick. Birthday cards, Christmas cards, gimmicks. I go, you don't believe in Santa? He goes, Santa? Are you fucking crazy? I hate that guy. I'm going, all right. Yeah, that's Troy Aikman. Hey, we learned a lesson about Santa. I told Troy when I first met him, don't ever bring Santa up to the guy. He hates the guy. I think he hates the guy more than Buddy Ryan. He can't. I've never seen a guy hate Santa before. Fuck that guy. I can't stand that guy. Coach, Santa Claus, it's Christmas Day. He goes, fuck him. I don't care. Hey, wait a minute. What's Santa got to do with Jesus Christ and Christmas? Nothing. Santa's got nothing to do with it. He don't believe in Santa giving the gifts and all that shit, and Christmas cards and birthday cards. Hey, fuck that. Fuck that. No more of that. His parents probably shorted him on Christmas. Santa's a saint. Oh, okay. And whatever, man. All I'm just telling you is that guy don't believe in Santa Claus. Oh, no. Everybody who believes in Santa in here is now moaning. Always someone getting butthurt. Thank you, Bruce. I know. Hey, there's always a snowflake, isn't there, Bruce? I'm going to show you that. I do have my old school Fiesta Bowl, one of my gifts. What year was that? Let's see how old this thing is. And I got it here, and I'll take a timeout and I'll show it to you. Then we're going to reset here. Hang on. Let's see here. Hold on. Okay. That thing's 38 years old. Hey, yeah. My mom tells the story of my grandfather throwing Christmas presents in the garden. Hey, Dan, how you doing? Ken, I appreciate it. All right, guys, do me a favor. Hit the like button. Keep it here, National Football Show.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Heading down the shore. Have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wildwood day.
Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your green house? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Sales National Football Show. Please hit the like button. We thank you so much. And as advertised, I got this in 1987 for the national championship. And they gave Penn State one of these things. Look at this. This is one of those old. Look at this thing. Look at this. Look at it. Remember these things? A helmet phone. This was one of our gifts. We were all like, whatever. So look, okay. This was one of the gifts, honestly, they gave us for the Fiesta Bowl. And I was like, we were all like, helmet phone. My grandpa actually used that for a little bit back in the day. That is yes, Yale. That is really old school. That is an old school thing. Yeah. So they gave us I forget, they gave us some watches. They gave us a bunch of gear. They gave us money. I had a great time. We showed up for 2 weeks and there was like a Super Bowl environment. It was really great. 100 million people ended up watching that game. It was one of the most iconic games of all time and in the highest rated college football national title game and highest rated college bowl game and any game of all time. Okay. Think about that. That game is still to this day the most watched game in the history of college football. And you got to say, and look, I know we lost and all that. next year we go back and win the national title. But hey, still being involved in something like that. And Joe Paterno, who I became friends with after that. Big helmet for your big head. Okay. Hey, Forrest. Okay. Sure. Sills could tell us the story of Jerome Brown. Oh, I forgot that, Kyle. Kyle, the story. Hey, Kyle, do you think these snowflakes could handle it? Because you know there's some there's Japanese talk, and it's Pearl Harbor stuff. Kyle, do you think some of these snowflakes could handle it? Do you think some of the snowflakes can handle what Jerome Brown? By the way, I'm sure if you Googled it, you could probably listen to it. It was a steak fry. Come on, Kyle. Do you think some of these guys? Sue goes, yeah. Sue just wants to hear it. Sills, let him eat shit. All right. So we had a steak fry, and it was Penn State guys in their white warm-ups. So you know what Jimmy did? We had solid black warm-ups. Had our names on it, Fiesta Bowl, the whole thing, University of Miami. Boy, we played this thing up. Penn State had these nice white. They'd show up like these guys were Johnny College. And they show up to this steak fry. And we're sitting there. And Jerome had his sweats on. I didn't know what he was doing. West Coast defense for life. And so, you know, they got up there and they started saying some jokes about Jimmy. You know, some of the players got up there about his hair. Nobody was laughing. We hated the Penn State guys. They did not represent anything we represented. They were trying to make fun of Jimmy, and we were like not having it. We were sitting there. We were just watching this. Nobody laughed. You know, the people in the stands were laughing, but nobody at Miami laughed. So Jerome gets up there. What does he do? Takes a hat out, battle fatigue hat. Takes his sweats off. He's got Army fatigues because we got off the airplane in Army fatigues. We all had guns, ammunition, grenades. Everybody got these. Back in the day, you could go to like an Army Navy store and buy all this shit. Now you can't do that. And we were number one going into that game. Yeah, they weren't. We hadn't lost in 3 years. And so he's up there and he gets up there to the mic. He starts talking shit. And he starts going like this. Hey, man, the Japanese, did they sit down and did they have conversations with the Americans when they attacked Pearl Harbor? I looked over at him. I'm standing right next to him. And I go, what the fuck are you saying? And Alonzo Highsmith, we're putting our head. Did the Japanese, did they sit down when they attacked them? No. Guys, fellas, let's get out of here. And we're like, he fucked that whole thing up. He just, where he came off, I'm like, so we're the Japanese? I was like this. We're the Japanese? I don't want to be the Japanese. They lose the war in the end. I don't want to be the Japanese. I'm walking off the stage going, I don't want to be the Japanese. Let's go, Sileo. I go, I don't want to be the Japanese. I know what he was doing, Yale, but I mean, I don't want to be the Japanese. They lost the war. Yeah, hey, Forte. Maybe that's a precursor to Hassan. I'm like, hey, man, I don't want to be the Japanese. The Japanese got beat in the end. Oh. We walk off the stage, man. We walk into the buses, and everyone's like, you fucked that whole thing up, man. Okay, you did. You fucked that whole thing. Why are we the Japanese? I don't want to be the Japanese. They got beat, dude. He's like, yeah, that's right. Right. The Japanese got beat. They won a battle. They didn't win the war. We want to win the war. Oh, everyone's laughing because we completely assassinated that thing. Some of the guys had the fatigues on. And we all walked off the airplane with those fatigues. People thought we were insane. We get off the airplane. We're wearing Eastern Airline, didn't know what to do. Back then, you could sit in the cockpit. So I'm sitting in the cockpit. I've got camouflage pants on. I always wear camouflage pants, though. I think maybe I started that, but then it wasn't really anything because back in the day, people wore painter's pants. You remember the old painter's pants and like the camouflage pants? They were for big guys with big legs. That's the only reason I wore them. I wasn't trying to make any stupid statement or anything. They were comfortable. And so I wore them, and I used to wear them to games all the time. I used to wear these camouflage pants. So Jerome goes, that's a great idea. Okay? That's a great idea. Let's put on battle fatigues. Okay? And I'm like, for what? Getting off the airplane. We got off the airplane. Everyone had guns. And that was the image. And I loved us playing up that image. They hate my group. They hate my team. And I'm talking to school. They hate everything we represented, but yet they sell that. The only thing they can live off of is swagger. That book Swagger back there with Jimmy, right there, it's because of us. And they hated it. When we got home, the president of the university was waiting for us as we got off the bus. We had to go in, and we had to hear Tad Foote tell us how much and how disappointed he was in us. And Jerome stood up and went, fuck you. We just made the school $6 million. Tad Foote left. Couldn't hear a pin drop. Fuck you. We just made your school $6 million. We didn't have to share it back then. Kyle, we didn't have to share it. We were independent. Everything we brought in, we kept. And so the school kept. And we made $6 million. We were not affiliated with any conference. So that thing was free and clear. You don't have to share it with 10 schools. $6 million. Okay, we got it all for ourselves. Year before that, the Sugar Bowl, we made $5 million. In 2 years, we made $11 million in 85 and 86 for the school. Put that out, how much that would be today in 2024. Be like $40 million. And how much money we earned that school. And this guy had the balls to come in and go, we were really disappointed. And the way we looked at it was we brought more eyeballs to the university, and more eyeballs to the game because of who we were and our attitudes and our swagger. We brought that to the table. Shit, man, you remember my teams. There's a reason why Sports Illustrated said my 1987 team is the most hated team in the history of American sports. Not college sports. American sports. Google it. Sports Illustrated named my 1986 Miami Hurricane team the most hated team in American sports. Bad Boys, Pistons, those Flyer teams, the Heat, those Yankee teams, the Canadian teams. My team's number one. Everybody still to this day reference that. Right, Yale? I think it was like in 2014, Sports Illustrated did that. Named us the most hated team in American sports history. We were one of the centerpieces on that team. I loved it. I played up to that image as much as I possibly could. I wanted them to hate us. They were glad to get rid of Jerome and I because we fueled it and we enjoyed it. UM football at the time were top. Oh, yeah. Seals did it. Notre Dame make jokes of Jimmy Johnson. Yeah. And that's why we beat them 57-3. That's why we beat them like that. We beat them by 51 points. Oh, man. We got heat for that. That's for sure. I can't believe they're beating Notre Dame like this. We were like, what are you talking about? This is enjoyable. We're running reverse sweeps in the fourth quarter up 48. Seals, how bad was Miami when Jim Kelly came to the U? Oh, they were just turning out of it, Kyle. You want to hear something? Joe Paterno recruited Jim Kelly to be a linebacker at Penn State. And he didn't think that Jim could be a quarterback at Penn State for him. That's why he ended up at Miami. Howard Schnellenberger gave him an opportunity to play quarterback at the University of Miami. And now he's a Pro Football Hall of Fame player. So, but Paterno wanted him because Jim played both sides. Jim was a linebacker and Kelly's from Pennsylvania. I think he's a Western Pennsylvania kid. And he played his high school ball out there where I think around the area where Namath was from, Beaver Falls and that stuff out there. I think he was around that neighborhood. And so he was out there and that neck of the woods out there. I think if I'm not mistaken, I think Dan Marino went to the Catholic school in Pittsburgh. Freilich went to Penn Hills. So, I mean, like that, Allegheny County, I think so. East Brady, I didn't know. Okay, so he's an Eastern PA kid. We lost the national title, but we were the bad guys. Yeah, that's what they put up there. They put St. Joe on the Sports Illustrated cover with a picture of Jerry Sandusky in the background. And they called us the bad guys, the outlaws. They called us the outlaws. They said Miami's the only football team that has to take their team picture from the front and side. Imagine a sports writer like Rick Riley, he wrote that. Why is Nick Chubb not mentioned as a top 5 running back? I think it's coming off the knee injury this season. Central Penn, cool. So you're around the PA area. You're around Pittsburgh then. All right, let me reset this. By the way, a little bit of college here. Hey, University of Colorado, you're irrelevant. Stop talking like you're relevant. I'm getting sick and tired of hearing about Colorado Buffalo football. They're irrelevant. My team is irrelevant until they can prove that they can win 10 games. This team can't win 5 games. You're completely irrelevant, Dion. You are not a player in college football. Stop pretending. And the media, stop coddling to this guy. He is not at all relevant. That football program has no relevance today. Dude, Vanderbilt is a better college football program than Colorado. Why in the world? Is it because it's Dion? Why does he get the pass? That thing has any relevance to it? He's a great salesman. He's a phenomenal salesman. But when it comes to his program, it's a horseshit program. The scouting was great for the U in the 80s. Who was behind looking into the urban areas for players? Great question, Forrest. Well, first it was Howard Schnellenberger. Howard would go into Liberty City, Overtown, Belle Glades, Florida, and they would go into those areas, and they would go in there, and Howard used to bring his pipe. And all the top recruit kids, he would leave his pipe, which meant he had to go back and get it. And so he'd go back and get it, and the kid was like, I left my pipe here. I have to come back. So he would keep the kid. And people like Lou Holtz and all those coaches back in the day, even Joe Paterno, they would never go into those inner city areas and recruit. The only other guy that went into the inner city areas was Barry Switzer. And that's why Coach Switzer had so many great players from inner cities from around the country, because he would go in there. And then Jimmy expanded that, and we would all go into the inner city and help recruit. We would go into Liberty City, Overtown, go into Woodrow Wilson High School. I used to go. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I still do to this day one of the coaches that's up there at Crenshaw High was a South Florida guy who I knew, we recruited, and he's the head coach. And every year I go up because he has like a get together for the alumni and all of his players. They play some inner city team that's their rival. And I go up and I speak at Crenshaw High every year. It's one of the cool things me and my wife do. They have pizza and all that. It's really dope. And the place where Strawberry played, I think Ice Cube went there as well. So, I mean, we love going up to Crenshaw. My daughter plays rugby up there when she was in high school. We used to go up there and play Crenshaw High all the time. Great environment. I love going up there. And we make a pilgrimage every year to go up there and do something with them. Just really great. I mean, I love going up there. That school is legendary too. I mean, Strawberry went to school there. I think Eric Davis went to school there. A lot of baseball guys. Some football dudes went there as well. But the field that they played on, I think, I don't know, Marcus Allen's San Diego. He's a San Diego kid. I can't remember who the running back was that went there to Crenshaw High. Anyway, Seals, did Jerome live in University of Florida Gators recruiting area? Yeah, Brooksville is a Gator country. Anything north of Tampa and west of Gainesville is considered Gator country. The rest on the east side to Jacksonville. Then again, the whole state's Gator country. Florida State has pretty much the upper end of it. From I-4 up is Florida State. Florida State's brought it down a little further, down to like Fort Myers. And Miami used to go up through Fort Lauderdale, all the way up to Orlando, to Tampa, back down through the Glades, and back over to Dade County, Broward County. And so that would be like, we called it the picket fence. That was the state of Miami, was that area. And we always felt if we recruited and won the state of Miami recruiting, we would win the national title. Miami doesn't do that anymore. You know who does that? Alabama and Georgia. Look at how many players are from those regions that are on those two schools. You'll know why Miami is not where they used to be. You either go to Ohio State, Georgia, or Alabama or LSU from those areas now. Howie's a Gator. Believe me, I know. Okay? Believe me. Struck gold with players that helped build the school's legacy through the 80s. That's cool as hell. I enjoyed being part of that whole thing down there. One of the greatest things of my life is having helped build that program and winning all those games. 31-1 regular season I was. I mean, lost one game to those filthy Gators. To those filthy Gators. Okay? Dan, you got to come to Lancaster. Italian food, fresh food, Dominican, Rican food is off the charts. I'm in. That's all food I eat. I like that. I'm a big Italian food guy. I love Cuban food. I love Chinese food. But the Dominican food, my wife loves that. My wife loves that stuff too. My stepfather was Puerto Rican, so I love that food. He was a great cook. Good night. Absolutely. Mr. International, I'm in. Hey, anytime Big Sills is being invited when it comes to food, we're there. Mr. International used to go all the time as a kid to my parents. Hated it because they would always go to the furniture shops, but we would go to the buffet in the morning. Lancaster County is beautiful. It is. Rolling Hills. Okay? Whatever I cook is automatically the best. Oh. So let me tell you something. Forte, are you good at cooking assholes and lips? Hot dogs? Hey, Forte, how are you with assholes and lips? Hot dog. I like hot dogs too, by the way. I do. All right, let me reset here. Pretzels and mustard. Dude, a big ass PA pretzel and mustard. Wow, do I miss that? Jersey Shore, too. Fuck. Man, is that good. A New England pretzel. Philly, Boston, New York, Baltimore. Man. Okay. Nathan's been there numerous times. I walked past the new Italian pastry shop. Looked like Sopranos. Astounding. Oh my God. I love Italian pastries, as you can tell. But I don't need any out here because there's not any out here. There's one place in Arizona that I dig. Philly soft pretzel. Good night. Had them. Nice beer with it. Hey, what's the pretzel like at the ballpark? I hear their hot dogs suck. I hear the hot dogs at the Phillies ballpark sucks. How's the pretzel there? And I've had the pretzel at the Link going to Army-Navy games. I've had that. It's damn good. Okay? Sills, isn't Boza Brothers playing South Florida? Yeah, they went to St. Thomas Aquinas. The father, I think, is a Boston guy. And the kids, the two brothers, Nick and Joey, played at St. Thomas. Dollar Dogs? No. My wife's of Lebanese roots and Arab. Oh, my God, man. I bet that tastes great, Sydney. I bet that's great. Look at you guys get me starving here. Yeah. All right, let me reset here. I want to read this to you here. You know, we were talking about Jalen Hurts at the open of the show and developing him. We're going to get and reset that a little bit. I want to read you something on what Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator, is saying about Josh Allen going into the 2024 season. Listen to what he says here. Josh Allen can make any play, and he makes plays that no one else can make. But we don't need it every play. Let me read it again. This is Joe Brady, the OC of the Bills. Josh Allen can make plays that no one else on the planet can make. But we don't need that every play. What's he telling them there? What do you think that offensive coordinator is telling him, Josh Allen, there? Seals, Josh Allen reminds me of Ben Roethlisberger. No, he's better. Roethlisberger was more patient. Roethlisberger doesn't get the respect that he should as a pocket passer in creating passing lanes by just moving around back there. Ben is underrated. I'll make this point to you, Kyle. Ben Roethlisberger had more success in Pittsburgh than what Peyton Manning had in Indianapolis. He had more success. He had more success. Look at Twiz. Ooh, yeah. Gets me all hot, Twiz. Good old Josh Allen talk. Talent. Absolutely. Let him play and hope it works out. Josh Allen is Carson Wentz, but he gets reckless with the ball. Force. Nobody on the planet doesn't think that Josh Allen is one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the league. Nobody but you. Nobody. Nobody but Hurts fans. Nobody would ever confuse that. Here's what I say, Joe Brady saying. Son, I'd rather pull you off the edge than push you to it. Punting is okay. Living to play another play or series is okay. Losing a game is okay. losing the war is not. If you learned anything from Mahomes last year, the last 2 years have been the greatest Twisco's turnover machine with 100 touchdowns, higher win percentage than Hurts, and 4 straight AFC East titles. Don't forget that, too, in the equation. Don't forget that. You forget that, too. Turnovers. Higher win percentage. 100 touchdowns in the last 3 years. 4 straight AFC East titles. What Brady is telling him, hey, and let me do one more time. Compare him to Mahomes. Okay. He wins a Super Bowl. He will be. That's a guy you do compare to Mahomes. Because he's just as athletically gifted. Yeah. How many turnovers do you think Mahomes had last year? Wasn't it 13, 14? I forget. How many interceptions did he have last year? 14? Mahomes had 14 interceptions? I forget. I mean, right? And Twiscos can't get the job done. Well, when you play against Burrow and Lamar Jackson and Mahomes in the postseason, road's a little tougher than playing against Baker Mayfield, Dak, Jared Goff. Come on, man. Let's not go there again. Here's why. Hey, Kyle, thank you. So let me get this right. Patrick Mahomes had 14 interceptions last year. Kyle, do me a favor, real quick. Tell me how many interceptions that Josh Allen threw for. Mahomes had 14 picks. 14 picks. What a turnover machine. Wow. Turnover machine. 14 picks he had. Got to be kidding me. That's a ton of interceptions for a guy. Wow. It's a turnover machine in the making. He had 18. He had 4 more. Thank you, Kyle. James, thank you. Okay, here. Let me tell you why Mahomes is a better player today than he's ever been. And you know who made him better? Tyreek Hill not being on the team. Because what did it teach him? Not to be dependent on one guy and have patience with the guys. Thank you, James. I appreciate that, brother. Hey, it teaches him to be patient and let the season play out. Do you know the equity now, Yale, that Mahomes has? Because you know why? Nobody's ever going to look at Patrick Mahomes and give 2 shits whether he wins 11 games, 13 games, 12 games. No one cares anymore. They're now comparing him to what he does in the postseason. One day, Jalen Hurts is going to graduate to that. We're talking about Jalen Hurts, 30 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Nobody gives a shit that Mahomes had 14 picks. Look at the contrasting conversations. Joe Burrow, too. Hey, Joe Burrow's health, now postseason. He's elevated into that. Josh Allen, nobody cares about the regular season. Allen's got to win, just like you guys say. Nobody cares about Lamar anymore in the regular season. Hey, Lamar Jackson has won 2 MVP awards before the age of 26. Nobody cares what he does any longer. You guys in Philly are still talking about Hurts. Will he throw for $4,000, 30 touchdowns, What will his INTs be like? Do you understand? You're still at the beginning stages of conversation with him when you talk like that. Mahomes at 14 picks. No one cares. They don't care because he's at a different level now. He's at a completely different level. He's in the conversation. What are you doing in the postseason? Like you guys say, Josh Allen's got to win in the postseason now. That's not what you're saying about Hurts. You're saying Jalen has to have a good season, 30 touchdowns, and reduce the turnovers. I don't give a fuck about the turnovers. If Jalen has 14 turnovers this year and that team wins 13 games, what do you care? If you make it to the Super Bowl and you win it, and Hurts has 13, 14 interceptions, but he's progressively getting better, what do you care? Patrick Mahomes. Hey, Kyle, did he have any fumbles too last year? If Jalen Hurts wins it all, he gets then elevated into, I don't care what you do regular season. But we're so fixated on Jalen Hurts and what Kellen Moore can do for him. If the offense is going to be a top 5, I don't really care about that now because you're paying that guy $55 million. Okay? $55 million. Lord Vaughn says the Eagles are Super Bowl or bust category. Yeah, because of the money you spent. How about this? Lord Vaughn. Yeah, you spent $175 million on your offense. Aren't you expecting that? Because if not, you wasted almost $250 million in salaries for nothing. Right? What's the point? Why are you paying all that money for getting no return on investment? Now, if you're just talking about being good, like the Cowboys, that's one thing. That's one thing. I don't think our defense has too many questions. Twiz, that's my takeaway too. Twiz, I think you have a Super Bowl offense. I think you have a sub 500 defense. And the only saving grace is that you don't have a bunch of veteran guys except for your corners as of now. And maybe those questions can be changed because of all the youth you've put back there and all the youth that you've drafted and equity you've drafted over the last 2 years. Could that dynamic change? Absolutely. You're not littered on that side of the ball with old dudes. You've got a lot of young faces over there that could clearly change that dynamic. Keely Ringo, Isaiah Rodgers, all of that. By the way, when I say they're inexperienced, you shouldn't take that as a negative. You should take that as, well, Sills, they're either going to look like Sauce Gardner, one of them, and I would make this point to you. And inexperienced DC matters. You heard Dave Wannstedt. I thought Dave gave Vic Fangio high kudos and high marks today, didn't you? Stacked? I wouldn't say stacked. I'd say you have a lot of faces and bodies back there. How are you stacked when you never have guys play it down? How do you know that, Twiz? How do you know until they get on the field and play an actual NFL down that you're stacked? How do you know you just don't have a bunch of bodies back there? You're assuming you're stacked. There's been not one guy playing the secondary that's decent in the last 2 years outside of Darius Slay. And you're telling me you're stacked. How's that stacked? Senor goes, Dave likes Saquon Barkley. Okay. I don't. Who says I bring yes men on? I think Dave likes Vic a lot. Our defense is stacked with potential. True. But I like the odds of being, okay, 2-5. every right to think that way. And you're not wrong on July 16th. You're not wrong. Seals, can you ask Dave Wannstedt if Vic Fangio drafted Quinyon Mitchell over Teron Arnold? That I will ask. Actually, I'll ask Clint Hurt that question. If it was Vic's call, I would have to think it was. Remember something. Teron Arnold played man at Bama. Quinyon Mitchell played zone. I think that had a lot to do with it, with his style of defense at Toledo. Because also, if you look at Cooper DeJean, he played in a zone defense too. I think that had a lot to do with it. Dave's 3 Super Bowl opinion matters. Let's not forget, he was also one of the guys that checked off on Haley coming over to Dallas when the 49ers thought they were sending him to the abyss. Also about the Hunt pick. Senor, we will definitely do that. I'm glad it's a younger defense. Me too. Because you know why, Lord? Younger defense means the potential can be real. Older defense means you know what you got. And you don't want to be 31st with old defense. But veteran leadership, corners, you're saying, I would be shocked if they outperform the offense. But yeah, I agree. Question marks. We all got to wait and see. It's true. The defense, no one really knows. And hey, I would just, once again, I make the point of this to you guys. Like when we were talking about Hurts and the development of the offense. Well, let's take a look at that on the other side of the football defensively. Okay. You think they're just going to, with the communication, all of a sudden, just that thing's going to just plug in and they're going to be a force? That thing may be bumpy. Here's how I would attack you. I don't know who Green Bay's tight end is. I don't think you have a linebacker on that football team that can cover Josh Jacobs. Now, I don't remember Josh Jacobs catching a lot of footballs in Vegas. He may have. Okay? He may have. I don't remember. But if that's me, I'm trying to get Josh Jacobs in space because I don't think you can tackle him. I don't think you're going to be able to get him on the ground. And I don't know who your tight end is, but I'll tell you one thing. That guy, Matt LaFleur, is going to spread that football around. And the first thing they do, they're going to get to the line of scrimmage. They're going to find the strong safety, and they're going to spread you out. And then they're going to find out who can cover. And if you guys play that 10 yards off the ball against Green Bay, wow, you better get pressure on the quarterback. Because if you don't get that guy on the ground, that thing will be a blowout on September 6th. Because they'll throw underneath all day long. And you're going to have to count on your red zone defense to make plays. Your red zone defense this year is going to be critical. Because if you can't get pressure on Jordan Love, like Dallas couldn't get pressure, he'll eat you alive from 20 to 20. And then you're going to take jump balls going into the end zone. And that always favors the offense. Plus, they have a dynamic running back in Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is 2 years ago, he had 1,700 yards or 1,600 something yards. He's a good football player, man. That kid can play. I don't think you're going to be able to hang with them. Now, can you keep it contained underneath and not give up the big plus 25? That, to me, is going to be the key early on in that defense. As you see the guys, you're going to be in nickel a lot because teams are going to spread you out and try to attack that linebacking core. Because I don't believe you have people that can cover. The second game of the year, that tight end that the Browns have, you don't have a guy on that football team that can cover him. You don't have a guy on that team. And their wide receivers, look, I think they're good, but I think they're more name than they are good. Amari Cooper, I think, is good. Jerry Jeudy, I think he was overrated in Denver. That guy doesn't frighten me. Deshaun Watson, we'll see. But, dude, then you got Chubb running the ball. You got to stop the run the second week. Oh, no, wait. The second game is Atlanta Monday night, I believe. Yes. You guys don't play the Browns until 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 coming out of the bye. You're right. The Falcons with Pitts. You don't have anybody on your football team that can cover Kyle Pitts. Then you got Bijan Robinson to deal with. Okay? That's going to be a work in progress. Keep everything underneath. I'm not saying you can't win, because if the offense here, if the Eagle offense can get 4 of these plays like they did in 22 in the first half, your chances of winning all these games go through the roof. And what I mean by that is this. Those remember in 22, 10 play, 14 play drives. How many times do we come away from the first half going, damn, the opponent only had the ball 9 minutes? They only had the ball 10, 12 minutes? It was just, I mean, they ran them off the clock. The Saints, Alvin Kamara will be a tough cover. I don't think they have a ton of skilled people down there. And now, Chris Olave is pretty good. Who's the quarterback down there? Derek Carr? I don't know. I've never been a fan of the guy. When I look at Derek Carr, I see a cheap man's version of Kirk Cousins, and he's nowhere near Kirk Cousins. I mean, Derek Carr, Derek Carr's not frightening me in any way. Derek Carr is like a better version of Wentz right now. You know, when you look at a guy like that, the Bucs have some talent. Tight ends coming on down there, and Mike Evans, they got to run the ball. Mayfield had a good year last year. That's going to be an interesting ball game, especially after what they did in the playoffs. That Week 6 game against the Browns is going to be a very interesting game. It's in Philly, too. It's going to be interesting. The tight end, you have nobody that can cover him. Chubb will be a challenge for the run game. Judy and Amari will be a challenge for the corners. Probably have to be in a lot of nickel in that ball game. Okay, we're talking offense versus your defense. By the way, your offense is not the concern here. They just got to find a stride. This is more about your defense here. You'll kill the Giants. The Bengals? You guys think you have the personnel to stop the Bengals? That is if Joe Namath Burrow's standing up. Brown secondary solid too, and plus they got Garrett. They had some casualties in free agency. They lost some players, but Jim Schwartz is a good coordinator. Kim? Okay, probably. Okay. Do you believe you have enough in the defensive side of the ball to stop the Bengals? Browns, no easy beats. No. Still depends if Burrow's playing. Right. It all comes down to that. I do like that guy, Jake Browning, Kyle. I do like Jake Browning. Okay? I do. Don't really have very cold winters like, okay. Judy came out of Alabama as possibly the best wide receiver since Julio. Devontae has been that guy. Devontae, is he the best wide receiver since Julio Jones? You think he's better than Jalen Waddle? Hasn't Jalen Waddle put up better numbers? Can you imagine you had Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith on the same fucking team? Hey, Xander, is that right? That was your Y and Z at Bama? Was Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith. Is that right? Those were your 2 wide receivers on that Bama team? Good night. Holy shit. I don't know if I've ever seen anything like that. Both those guys are making north of $25 million. Henry Ruggs was there too. Yeah, but Waddle went down that year, and Smitty won the Heisman. Was Ruggs on that team that year? Was he also on that? So they had Ruggs, Waddle, and Smith. Whoa. Wow. Wow. I think Ruggs and Judy left the year before. Man, what a collection of wide receivers. That place was never known for that. When I grew up, Alabama's quarterbacks were like back in the 70s and 60s. Namath, Stabler, Richard Todd. The rest of them were nobodies. The running backs, they didn't have a Heisman. Bear Bryant never delivered a Heisman Trophy winner. Can you believe that? He won like 6 national titles. He never delivered a Heisman for Bama. Never. Never delivered. You didn't go to Alabama if you were a wide receiver. Tight end. Well, that's not true. Ozzie Newsome went there. So Ozzie went there. Wide receivers didn't go to Alabama. Quarterbacks didn't go there. If you were a skilled guy, you never went there. That guy Saban changed the entire culture of Alabama football. Auburn still runs a pro-style run attack. It's now just evolved when Gus Malzahn was there into being a passing type offense. He's doing it now at UCF. But when Gus Malzahn, before he got there, Pat Dye and all them dudes, dude, they ran the ball like a maniac all the way up through the early 2000s. Bo Nix left Auburn for a reason because it wasn't really a pro-style offense. That's why he went to Oregon. Auburn is just now getting there and catching up with the rest of the Southeastern Conference. Nick Saban took an old school 3 yards in a cloud of dust. I remember it. It had to have been after the Derrick Henry year. Because after Derrick Henry, Nick went like this. We got to get recruits in here that are going to compete with Ohio State and Clemson. Because at the time, Ohio State and Clemson were constantly going to the semifinals. But what were they doing? They were getting all the big wideouts and receivers and quarterbacks and running backs all to go to Columbus and to go to Clemson. Nobody was going to Southern Cal any longer. Southern Cal had lost their place. Bama, LSU, Ohio State, and Clemson became the centerpieces for all those guys. He just changed it overnight. Who was the quarterback that won his first national title? Who was the guy? He was like I think he's an analyst now. The guy that won the first national title. He was a nobody. He was if you're a quarter, like this kid they got here now, what is it, Monroe? Jalen Monroe or something like that, the kid that's down there today. Milroe, I think it is. That kid's going to get a shot to play in the league because of Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa. He's going to get a shot to play. Saban changed that entire way. The guy who I'll make this point to you too. He did. He stunk. I forget the guy. Yeah. Greg McElroy. That guy won a national title at Alabama. He fucking sucks. That's the kind of guys they were getting in there. Now they get guys in there that are going to be 5-star kids. Absolutely. Jalen Milroe, he's going to have a shot to play in the National Football League because of guys like Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, and all that. Absolutely. Dude, let me tell you, the guy who changed the entire landscape of college football in the SEC was Steve Spurrier. Nobody threw the ball around the yard like that. Prior to him, was none of that shit. Nobody threw the ball. Steve Spurrier changed the face of SEC football. He is the signature most important guy on how you see the ball thrown in the air in the SEC. Was because of him. He changed, and I hate the Gators, and I don't like giving them any kudos, but Coach Spurrier is the guy that changed the face of the SEC. Completely changed it. That's why Florida became what Florida was starting to do when they started winning national titles. I mean, Spurrier changed it. Phil Fulmer wasn't recruiting Peyton Manning. Remember something, Peyton Manning didn't win a Heisman. He never won a national title. It was T. Higgins. No, excuse me. It was T. Martin. T. Martin won the national title, not Peyton Manning. Wait a minute. Peyton was Peyton. No, it was T. Martin. He won it. Fax Hills was the first in SEC to throw the ball around like that. Absolutely. He changed the entire landscape of how the SEC looks. Before that, it was all Herschel Walker, Bo Jackson, running the ball like that. A.J. McCarron, another Steph. He didn't want A.J. McCarron and Greg McElroy's any longer. He wanted guys who were going to be considered frontline guys. Think about this. This guy had two players on his roster, Nick Saban. One guy is going to make $55 million in Tua, and the other guy makes 51. Between two guys, the starter and the backup, you have $100 million in salaries with two guys he recruited. And look at the wide receivers that were on the team. That is unbelievable. When you talk about recruiting, Saban will go down as the greatest, not greatest coach, because coaching in college football is more about hiring the right assistants and recruiting. He'll go down as the greatest head coach recruiter of all time. All time. Jimmy was great, but it lasted 5 years. This guy won a title at LSU. This guy changed the landscape of Michigan State football after George Perlis. He completely changed after that whole nightmare with David Shula. I mean, you could make the argument who had more impact in his job, Saban or Belichick. Nick didn't miss too much on his guys. And if he did, they weren't on the team. He got rid of them. Nick Saban's a hell of a recruiter. Every place he went, Michigan State, LSU, Alabama, hell, Toledo, when he was there. Toledo, I think, won a MAC conference title when he was there in his first year. Saban's better than Bryant. Bryant was more of a guy during an era that, again, he had to deal with just having white guys on the team. Saban was in an era where he could recruit. So to be fair to Bear wasn't allowed to have black athletes. In the Southeastern Conference was not putting black players at the time of segregation on any of the teams. It was an SEC rule. So Bear was kind of put in a box a bit, and that's why all the Southeastern Conference kids went to two conferences. You want to know why the Big Ten and the Pac-12 during the 60s and 70s and 80s and into the 90s were dominant when it came to bowl games? Because of all the Southern players that couldn't play in the SEC, and all the SEC players that were in the South went to the Big Ten and went to the Pac-12. When that dynamic changed, SEC has dominated ever since. Absolutely, Yale. It's a different world now. You don't have to leave Mississippi State or the state of Mississippi any longer. You can go to Ole Miss. You can go to Mississippi State. Back in the day, they weren't recruiting you. If you were a black superstar player, you had to go to Southern Cal or Oregon or Michigan State, or you had to go to Ohio State or Michigan if you were fortunate. So Bear Bryant couldn't recruit a kid from Tuscaloosa, or he couldn't recruit a kid from Tuscaloosa who was the top black player in the area because the school wouldn't accept him. It is. Nick didn't have that dynamic. So to be fair to Bear, he was limited in the players. You know, I'll always say this, you know, one of the things that hurt Bear Bryant had 2 back-to-back national titles. He was undefeated. Xander, I don't know if you know this. 2 undefeated titles. Third year, he was undefeated. He finished third that year. You know why? Because writers out west thought it was too racist that there were no African Americans on the team, so they didn't give him his third in a row. Alabama went 3 years in a row undefeated. And because there were no African American players on the team, the media around the country didn't give it to him. Think about that. That's the kind of era and crap that he was dealing with back in the day. Think about that. So Saban kind of, he kind of benefited a little bit from the times too as well. Saban's O-linemen, though, through his tenure were also awesome. Absolutely. Saban's just a great coach. Would I have loved to play for him? Absolutely, because he had the same kind of program that we had. The only problem that I would say, and Cosmo, the only problem that I have is that Jimmy Johnson allowed us to have our own personalities. Nick didn't allow that with his players. Now, again, Jimmy didn't have to deal with social media. So it would have been an even bigger nightmare. Dude, if we got into trouble that we got into nationally with no social media, could you imagine the social media that would have destroyed us? They would have shut the program down. With the things that were going on at my school at that time and what things were saying about it, right, Yale? They'd have shut the program down because of the shit that we said or did. I know drama sells, you're right, but they would have absolutely shut our program down. Bear won 5 titles. Being in that box, that's really good. Hey, Forrest, am I right? Did he win a 6th title at A&M? I thought that Bear won a national title when he was at Texas A&M and his final year there at A&M, and that's what got him the job at Tuscaloosa, getting the Alabama gig. I thought he had 6. I thought he won that other one at Texas A&M. RTF shut the pro. Yeah, they would have without a doubt shut the program down. So I think the missing piece on defense is an edge rusher. Could be. He's got the money. He totally has the money. 27.7 still out there. Sills, with the cap space, what's your next move before the start of camp? Let's see what happens if there's any camp casualties. Keep an eye on Joey Bosa. And keep an eye on that. I don't know. It's something really weird going on out there with Joey Bosa and the Chargers. They're asking Bosa to take a pay cut. Bosa doesn't want to take a pay cut. I mean, would they just cut him? I don't know. And plus, now that Brandon Ayuk's out there and he's demanded a trade, maybe that's somewhere that, you've got to get Justin Herbert a target. All right. Guys, I appreciate it. Guys were awesome. I thought Coach Wannstedt was sensational. I appreciate it so much. You guys could please do me a favor. Please hit the like button. Xander, Big Joe, we appreciate it. 2 to 6 tomorrow, and we'll see you on the flip side.